Hello and welcome. Nice to see you all. Just give me one moment. I just would like to make sure you can all hear me because as always, I'm very sorry about this, but today is a bit iffy because of the hacking I just suffered. Just a moment. Is that running? I'd like to make sure you can all... Okay, it sounds good. It also looks like you can see the the edge of my shielding. I will try to move it a bit like that. Let's see, is that better? Okay, so I've got a lot to tell you, and it's today is an important broadcast, and because of that, also I suffered some hacking. So I was struggling for the past hour to get my computer back to work. It was slowed down incredibly, and I couldn't do anything. And in the end, I discovered that there seems to be some hidden process that is hogging disk space, but the task manager can't list it. So, you know, I don't have time to investigate, but it's, it slowed me down. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully my video and audio isn't delayed, but let's just fly with it. So the biggest news, everybody, is that we now have a court date. Okay. I flew to London last week, and I've got lots to tell you about this trip to London. And I went to the High Court and I put in the application notice, or what's it called, and I applied for court date. I actually wanted to file so much more. I wanted to file the particulars of claim. The problem is that in London, I was just basically gunned to bits. So in every hotel room, I was gunned, but to the point that I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, I was just in pain. And this just went on and on. In the end, I had to rebook my flight and hope that I can, maybe do it the next day and finish everything. And in the end, I thought, nah, let's just take it bit by bit. Let's get the court date. Let's get everything rolling. And let's file it as we go along, as we are physically capable of doing. And I think that was the right decision in the end. So I just filled out the most minimal things that go onto this, form, and I didn't submit anything else yet. I will do that later. But I have to say, I am severely hampered by torture and by non-stop machine gunning. And with non-stop machine gunning, I mean that you have several beams aimed at your body, and the pulse rate with which your brain is battered and with which several body parts are battered is so high that you can't hold a thought, you just can't do anything, and you're just paralyzed, okay? And when you leave the house, the whole game of gang stalking, being shot in the head by cars and so on, and then going somewhere and then being disrupted, and then, all this starts up again. So you can't do anything wherever you go, okay? I managed to get somewhere sitting in restaurants around London. That was okay. But even then, you have the noise, you have a million people. I mean, you can't really work on a court case, sitting in Starbucks and actually focusing. And that's what you have to do when you're being targeted. Plus, also, you have to move every hour because some gang stalker is going to sit down with a backpack and literally gun you to shits, right? So that is life in Europe with these roving death squads being run by Andrew Parker and being run by Jean-Philippe Gaudin here in Switzerland, and by the equivalents in other European countries. And that is the reality. They can stop you from doing everything. They can stop you from breathing. They can stop you from having a heartbeat or even think straight. Okay, so it was massively, well, I don't want to say traumatic, but massively physically draining and maiming to go to London, right? Because these people went into berserko, not so overdrive just to make a point. And I mean, I can definitely tell there's this huge limp-wristed old tosser contingent behind the scenes, because the whole thing started off when I flew to London by, I drove to the airport and everything went fine, amazingly. And then I went through the gate, and then I went to the boarding gate where you're sitting. It's the last place where you're sitting inside the airport before boarding. And I just sat down kind of behind the desk of the steward who would be checking you in when you're going onto the plane. And I sat down, and I think some 30 seconds passed, and then the phone was ringing on his desk. He picked it up. He turned all the way around to look at me and said, "Yes, she is here," in German. And I was thinking, yes, Andrew Parker, I'm here. And unless you shoot the plane down, I'll soon will be there. right? But it's like, oh God, okay, somebody urgently needed a wank, clearly, right? And it's just kind of like, I can see what they're doing, right? They want to show me how powerful they are and just, you know, flex their muscle and say, yeah, you know, we control the fucking phone lines. We can pick up the phone and make a phone call. Woo, right? At your age, you still manage to do that. That's great, right? But still, it's kind of like, it's a bit wanky, you know? And on the flight, I was philosophizing about this and thinking, what's wrong with this? I mean, why? I can see what they're trying to do and, you know, do the thing that they do in Hollywood movies and come across as really cool. And yet they come across so, you know, limp-wristed. And in the end, I think I figured out what it is. Okay. And I think I said it before, but now I really understand it. Okay. So what all these old tossers in the intelligence agencies have to understand, right? It goes back to animal behavior and it goes back to dominance displays. And at the end of the day, when you have, for example, I don't know, two stags, right, going at each other with their antlers, the dominance display with the antlers is always ever just intended to impress other males, okay? Everywhere in the animal kingdom, dominance displays only ever, you know, are just there to impress other males. It doesn't impress the females for genetic reasons, because if we were impressed, we would maybe be scared and run off. Well, that's not the whole point of a dominance display mating ritual, right? When all the females just run away screaming. So I'm genetically evolved not to ever get scared by dominance displays and rather to think, does it impress me or was it like so la la? And I have to say this was so la la, right? It was a bit lame. And that's only what's ever going to come out of this, no matter how, you know, these guys are ramping everything up. I'm just going to sit there going like, man, you know. So, you know, this was it. But the whole thing continued, and it was quite funny because I arrived very late at night in London, and I took the bus. And I have to say, gosh, I mean, London, right? It's a whole story in itself. But actually, I just realized I haven't told you the date of the court case. So I'm going to tell you the date first, and I'm going to analyze everything else that happened in London because it's really important. Okay. So the court date, and watch out because there's a snag. The court date I got is the 12th of December. The 12th of December. All right. And there were already at the court, there were lots of problems being thrown up. I mean, not, you know, by staff and not with this court date, but, you know, with other stuff. So let's analyze it. There are two things to note about the 12th of December. Number one, 12.12, right, is 3.3 or 33. It's, again, some Masonic wanky number. It just so happens, right? Now, that's number one that I could just about live with, you know, the Masonic wanking that surrounds us all the time, right? We kind of got used to it. But the second thing about that date is that it's the general election in the United Kingdom. Okay, now I'm really sorry about this because I didn't even know that the general election was going to be this soon because I'm not really reading the British papers and I didn't know the date. So when this date, you know, was decided, I didn't object on my feet because I didn't know what a big bummer it's going to be. Okay, so I suspect, if I had to guess, this date wasn't picked out at just by random chance, right? Although I don't really want to, you know, insinuate that maybe the court clerk had a hand in this because he was really nice and, you know, but still, right, magically, somehow by neurotech or some, you know, invisible power, it worked out to be, again, right, a very, you know, stupid date. Now, what's stupid about this is that anybody who's British and is intending to vote on the day and wants to make it to the court hearing might have to work around the court hearing, okay? So you either go to the polling station when they open, which I believe is at 7 a.m., and then you dash to the High Court, which you know, can reasonably make if you're in London. But if you're anywhere else in the UK, right, you might not be able to make it to the court case and vote in person at the same time. Okay, now that's really shit, isn't it? So what you can do is you can, of course, apply for postal vote and then vote ahead of time and then just come to the court case and everything will be fine. But I don't actually recommend you do that, because your postal vote will not be counted the same way. It will be counted somewhere in some office by somebody you will never see, and you will have no control over it. Whereas most polling stations still work like you put all the ballots in a box, and that box is then opened after hours, and you open it and count through physically what's in that box. And I think, at least in Germany, there are independent court observers who can sit there and watch the entire process. Not so with your postal vote. Now, if you are a target, you're much more likely to come to my court case than if you're just, Joe Blogs who just thinks, ooh, this is weird. What sort of court case is that, right? Now, if you're target, you are much more likely to be fucked over every which way administratively. So you are exactly in line to have your vote miscounted, by, let's say it, the secret services for, some big globalist agenda. So in other words, the court date is set such that you can either make use of your democratic right to have a say, or you can make your weight be felt in the courtroom, but not both at the same time. Now, I really disagree with that. So I'm going to try to get this court date changed. I'm working on that. And I'm, if I had much more experience with how the courts work, I'm sure I could kind of weasel it, which is probably what all the barristers and all these solicitors are doing, right? They're just weaseling around and changing everything to their, intention. If you are, somebody who represents themselves, well, it's not that easy, right? Because you can be told, oh, sorry, it can't be done. And then it turns out, oh, yes, it can be done if you just, if you throw a hissy fit on the spot. So anyway, so this is under development right now, under work in progress. But the current court date is the 12th of December, 2019. Easy to remember because it's the general election day. Very sorry about this. And as I said, I'll try to mend it, but that's all we have to work with, for now. Should there be any change, I'll let you know. So this is the court date, okay? Now, there's so much more about London and what's currently happening and what's happening in the world that I would like to talk to you about, okay? And I think all of this is relevant, but let's start with the more amusing stuff first, okay? So imagine on the day I flew to London, which was meant to be the day before I go and file this stuff, it started with, the phone call to the desk and, pretending to be like, oh my God, Anyway, they managed to find a phone number and then call it. Woohoo. Okay. And then I landed in London and I finally figured out, okay, so if you're flying from anywhere into the London airports, the first thing that you'll probably notice, well, apart from maybe the leaking, of the ceiling occasionally where they have buckets. I think it was Gatwick last time I checked, where you're going towards you're going out, right? But on the way, you're passing like literally buckets that are catching dripping water from the ceiling. Woo! Okay. But anyway, no buckets this time. But then, the first thing you'll notice is the mega queue. So every UK airport seems to funnel everybody from all the flights that land in the airport through one, right, set of desks where you can have your passport checked. And there's only one, and you funnel people into this like soul-destroying mega queue, where the airplane loads of, several transatlantic flights and several Boeing 737s are just like offloaded into a big hall. And then you can see this mega snake of a queue, right? And of course, on the other end, there are, 10 people operating this, but still, it is just seeing that queue is just soul destroying, right? And in the end, I mean, I've been wondering what the freaking point of this is, because as you are queuing, right, the one thing you must never do while you're on the queue is think about why this queue is there. If you're flying to any German airport or any Swiss airport, your passport will be checked by a friendly person, somewhere along the way. Most German airports just check you as soon as you get off. So, at most they check, 100 people, you know, one load of an airplane, however many fit in, and that's it. Okay, so that's fine, and it's done within 5 minutes, no big deal. But London insists on the mega queue, and I have been wondering about the purpose of the mega queue ever since I went to the UK as an undergraduate, which was decades ago, right? And I finally figured out the point. Okay, and I think the point is a psychological selection mechanism, because as you are standing in the queue, you are watched by all the cameras, right, in the room. It's one of the most surveilled sections of the entire airport. So everybody's faces can be monitored from all angles as you're queuing this way and then queuing back that way and then queuing back this way, and on it goes for about half an hour, right? And I bet you in that half an hour, just by looking at the faces, you can already sort people, right, according to their level of intelligence and frustration level, right? And you can, I bet you can tell total gibbering morons who are essentially, you know, nicely cooked and, you know, zombified from people who still have a brain. Because if you have a brain and just spend a nanosecond thinking about why the fuck the queue is here, you will literally go nuts, because there is no reason. There is no possible organizatorial or manpower reason for the mega queue. The mega queue is just perping. It is basically pure torture for the half an hour, 20 minutes you're going to be in the mega queue watching everybody else from around the world. Also, it's great for spreading infections, because then within one hall, you have everybody from all around the world bringing germs from Africa, Latin America, North America, and Asia all into one room. It is amazing. If you really want to kick off an epidemic, the London airport waiting queue is the place to go, right? But anyway, so the more you think about it, the more your brain is going to go into overdrive. And if you manage to stay sane by the end of this queue, you will have either had no brain or a superhuman amount of self-control, right? And I think it's the super amount of self-control that you really need to survive the rest of the United Kingdom. Because as soon as you come out of the airport, you'll be met with shit bus schedules, awful buses, really crappy roads, and just cancelled trains and the whole UK package. And the only way that, you know, MI5 can still be sure that you're not going to massacre everybody when your, you know, train is going to be cancelled the nth time, is if they've monitored you in the mega queue and have found that you're still, you know, as much in control of yourself that by the end of it, you can still smile into the camera that's going to take a photograph and record your facial features for the facial recognition that's all around the United Kingdom. Okay, so the mega queue, okay, and watch for the mega queue and just have a good look. How many cameras can you count, and how many undercover people can you count? And, you know, can you really think about what is this system for? Okay, and I think the answer that you will arrive at is not what it looks like at all. Okay, so the mega queue. Now, after I came through the mega queue, right, pondering these things, I got through the gate, and or the, you know, you're heading towards the exit, you're leaving the security zone, and then there's a last bit where there are two cameras pointed at you, and then you can think about why there have to be two. And so from two slightly different angles, right, kind of seeing both sides of your face and maybe other stuff. And then in the middle, right in the middle, there was a guy in a fluorescent vest sitting there, somebody, you know, who looked like staff for security. And he was sitting there like this with his phone and filming. I mean, kind of the angle was like the camera is filming everybody arriving. And he was just there looking at everybody, not at his phone. So I walked past him and I pretended like I'm gonna just, you know, walk past him. And instead, I just, you know, did a pirouette and, you know, hopped down on the chair and just looked at him. And I said, "Are you filming the people who are arriving?" And sure enough, he was. I saw his mobile phone and it was on film mode. And he was filming everybody who was arriving, right? So he quickly looked at me and was like, "Oh, no, I'm not." And then he pressed the off button, but his volume was on. So you hear the pling sound when the video streaming is terminated. So I thought, oh, you were recording a video live stream. And then he swiped right, and then back into camera mode. And he said, look, I'm not filming, this is on camera mode. And I thought, oh, God, I'm not going to have a discussion. I just wanted to establish if you are, if you're not, right? So I'm not sure. I didn't look like he was waiting for his dear wife and his children to arrive, right? Because he was in his work outfit. And just the face, okay, the face of this guy. He was on a job. So somebody had put him on a job to film people who were arriving at that time. So already I thought, well, I'm not going to be biased, but after what happened at the, the boarding gate, it almost looked like this guy has been hired to disconcert me and give me again the feeling of, oh, look, we're watching you as soon as you step out. So I thought, okay, this will probably be, kind of a sign of what's to come. And I thought there will be probably gang stalking overdrive. Okay, so I climbed onto a bus and I drove all the way into London, and I arrived, I think it was something like 11:30 p.m. Okay, and the bus stops. The bus, I think it was Luton I arrived. So the bus from Luton stops behind Paddington Station, and you can have a look on Google Maps. So if you're Londoner, you can go there at 11:30 p.m. and you can just check how many people are in that bus stop, or around that bus stop. It's pretty much zero, because there are only office buildings, all the lights were on, there was nobody there, right? I was the only person to get off at that bus stop. And then curiously, there were two young women, right, just standing there in the middle of nowhere in the bus stop, but not getting on. Nobody was getting off, and there were no other buses arriving, right? So I thought, okay, this is the MI5 welcome crew, right? I probably ignored all the gang stalkers on the bus, and they have to make it really clear. So they moved the gang stalkers to be waiting for me. And I thought, okay, if these people are gang stalkers, they will have visual contact to the next watch post, right? And I realized these girls were not coming with me. They, two women on their own in London at 11:30 p.m. You would not stop at that point. You would just make the sure that you get somewhere back where there are people, So I thought, okay. So sure enough, at the next stop, there was a guy, and then around the corner, there was somebody else. And in the end, I didn't even have to check the map to get to the hotel. I just had to get from one gang stalking post to the next, because they were, wonderfully evenly split every 50 meters. So I just had to get to the next gang stalker and then go, okay, where's the next one waiting? Okay, that's where I have to go. Didn't know, right? So this is how I got to my hotel. So anyway, that's another, really overt sort of, it's a power wank, okay? It is a power wank, but again, this whole thing was totally wasted on me because I'm a woman. I'm just like, oh God, But the one thing that I did notice is that, and this is something I've noticed before in the past, is that in London, MI5 have hired so many young people. If I had to guess, they have hired all the people who cannot pay their tuition fees or think they can't pay their tuition fees and are really looking forward to easy money. Okay. And I guess that they are being paid really well, and they think, oh, look, the only thing we have to do is be outside and, with our mobile phones and type messages and follow people around. That's great fun. And we're doing something for the national security, and we get to pay off our student loans. Okay. Now, this is super important to note, because it shows you how the system operates in the UK. Now, what I'm saying now will be relevant to everybody in the UK and everybody in the United States, because in those two countries, you have stupidly high tuition fees. And the only purpose of those tuition fees is to enslave the young generation. There is no other reason, believe it or not. And the reason why there's no other reason is because every Western nation is in fact rich enough that it could pay for the education of the young people multiple times over. In fact, we could pay for the health insurance multiple times over. Okay. And the way you can tell is if you go to other countries like Germany or Switzerland, where university education is still for free and the government hasn't gone bankrupt to this day. Okay. Now, I also know from the financial whistleblower, Harry Hoichi, that had billions not been stolen by this organized crime cartel, had billions not been stolen, the Swiss the social security funds would be so filled with money now that they could pay every Swiss person 15,000 Swiss francs per month. Okay, take that in. Now, 15,000, so 1 Swiss franc is roughly $1. So imagine if a small country like Switzerland could pay in Social Security every single Swiss person 15,000. If you have a bigger pool, you can equalize even more between income variations and so on, right? So the US could do it too. And Germany could do it too, right? So as you go to larger scale, the whole thing scales quite well because you've got more people paying in. Yes, you have more people being reliant on Social Security, but the whole thing scales, you know, in equal proportions. So if this has been established for Switzerland, and this is the calculation by the financial expert who's a whistleblower called Harry Hoichi, that's what he told me in a private conversation. He said, look, I just calculated this. It's 15,000 Swiss francs. Now, how could this possibly be? And the reason why this can be is because when you're paying in huge wads of cash, like into any insurance or social insurance, you can work with that money on the financial markets and you can in principle make the same sort of returns, right? In fact, the bigger you are, the better, right? The less kind of vulnerable you are to local, you know, little risk and so on. So you can really spread it around and have something very safe. Now, most people don't notice, but the financial markets have been ballooning exponentially. And meanwhile, your income has stayed constant. What that means is that you have been exponentially impoverished compared to all the cartel insiders, which are the people in the banks and all the gang stalkers they pay and all their assassins and all their deep state people and so on, right? So while you were on a fixed income that was barely increasing, you know, a fraction of a percent, if you were lucky, every year, in terms of the financial world, people have been raking in returns of 8% every year and so on, right? So, you know, 4 to 8% easy, right? Now, you were getting poorer by 8%, and it's always 8% of the wad of cash that you have, which incorporates the increase of the previous year. So in other words, you know, all of us, we have been annihilated by this financial trick. And we thought, oh, it's great because we got a pay rise and now we can do all this. No, this was a fraud because everybody else got a super pay rise. So they were driving prices and you were getting relatively poorer. You were impoverished. Now, once you've understood this, okay, and once you've understood that had this crime cartel not been stealing from all our social funds would have ballooned in proportion to this, right? And that's how, in today, we could be paid 15,000, okay? That's how. And if you look at the deep state people, they are making millions every year. Why? Because they are exactly on that payment scheme, which has been exponentially ballooning, which can pay them easily, you know, 15,000 per month. No problem. Okay, so you have to understand that there are two parallel societies. There's this parallel society of the gang stalkers who were waiting for me in London and their handlers and their handlers' bosses, and they are on the ballooning salaries, and all other schmucks like, you know, you and I, we are on the constant impoverishment track. Okay, this is important. Now, when you introduce tuition fees, you take an entire generation and you enslave them for life, because paying back those ludicrous tuition fees will take them the entire career time if you're on a medium-sized salary. This is how it's designed. It's designed to last your entire working life. So you will be effectively taxed on top. So if your parents were already impoverished with this constant salary, barely any salary increases, the young generation who has to pay the tuition fee tax on top until the end of their working careers will be annihilated. So now come MI5 and they've got these dirty jobs and really mind-numbing bullshit jobs like, you know, stalking Catherine Horton from Paddington Station to a hotel. And then what do? They pay like a pissing salary in deep state terms to these teenagers who are typically on the, you know, the impoverishment track. And these teenagers will think that they have the most glamorous salary, right? That's the trick. That's the trick. And this is relevant in the United Kingdom, where tuition fees went from nothing to first 3,000 per year, and then to 9,000 per year. So by the end of your university course, with, sustenance and everything else you had to pay and rent, with the tuition fees, you would end up, well, on a 3-year course, it would be just 30 grand for your tuition fees, plus something like 10, 15 to 20 grand for your upkeep for all those years, right? So you easily end up with something like 50 grand or 60 grand of debt. And that's just when you start at the end of your university career. Now, you can't pay it back immediately, so that debt sits and you will pay interest on top. So by the time you're finished, there will be at least 50% on top of that, right? So you will have paid off, when everything is said and done, something like 75,000 to 100,000 that the generation before you didn't have to pay. Now, earning together $100,000 takes a long time. And this is the amount of time that has been stolen from you if you ever had to pay tuition fees. Do you understand? Now, this is just the warm-up exercise to understand the full implications of what I saw in London, okay? The deep state works by generating slaves through taxation, tuition fees, and currency devaluation, which impoverishes you in a silent way that will not drive you to revolt. This is how it's done. By the time you're totally impoverished, you will do anything to survive, which means you will also gang stalk and eventually also murder your compatriots, other Americans, other British people. You will have no qualms. And then when it's pointed out to you that you are committing a crime, what's it called? Emotional dissonance and discord will kick in, and you will internally find an excuse to explain to yourself why this is okay. So this financial engineering is always the precursor to the gang stalking, to the death squads, to the Nazi extermination program. Okay, always, always. We have seen it in Nazi Germany, where it was actually the what's it called? The Reichsbank, so the central bank of Switzerland, devalued the currency by printing it into oblivion, right? First comes the money printing, then comes the devaluing of the currency, not the other way around, right? Now, the guy who was the head of the central bank in Germany during the Nazi times was actually Swiss. It was Sean Ross, the historian Sean Ross, who pointed that out to me, right? So thanks to Sean Ross, helped me understand what happened. So the global crime cartel is headquartered in Switzerland. They plant a Swiss guy in the central bank in Germany. He devalues the currency with all his cronies. They impoverish everybody. Then comes Hitler, then comes some sort of stupid explanation why they have to kill all the rich people and all the clever people and all the Intelligenzia in Germany, and everybody does. And after they are caught killing everybody, they come up with all these excuses why it was okay. Oh, we didn't know, or oh, we were not told that we actually were murdering people. Oh, we were told that all these people being loaded into, trains and looking rather emaciated. I thought we were sending them on a holiday, So all these excuses come in, and they are a psychological effect. And the same psychological effect can be amplified over an entire nation, okay? So this is super important to understand what it all means and, what to look for. Because we saw first impoverishment, then mass extermination in Nazi Germany. And then what we saw in 2008 was the financial crisis, which was completely engineered by the banks, and it's basically a total hoax and a total fraud. You had the fraudulent financial crisis, so-called. It impoverished the entirety of the United States, on top of decades of currency devaluation, on top of the most, batshit crazy tuition fees you can possibly imagine. And that set up the trajectory that there are enough ruthless and desperate people in the United Kingdom who will do anything to be paid as gang stalkers, gift cards, what's it called, food stamps, small payments. They will do anything to get money, and they will also murder their own. They will murder people in their communities. They will murder their neighbors. Some of them are even willing to murder their own family members. And that's the ramp that the United States is now on. That's the ramp that the United Kingdom is now on. And that's also the ramp that Germany and Switzerland are on. But hang on a second, because we said for this extermination to be possible, you need currency devaluation. Tick, all of these countries had it. Tuition fees, right? You need that too. And then maybe if you want to add on top, you need some sort of financial shock, like the financial crisis, that's the third. Now, there was a financial crisis in the United Kingdom, and there was also a much bigger one in the United States. There was also kind of one in Germany, but not really in Switzerland, So in Germany and Switzerland, we only had the currency devaluation, but we didn't have the tuition fees, and we didn't really have this like really tough financial shock of the financial crisis. So what do you need in those countries to generate a reliable, trustworthy army of financially desperate people who are willing to kill their neighbors? Well, how about immigrants? Right? Oh, sorry, immigrants, right? How about immigrants? How about you import millions and millions of, let's say, young men in the military, soldier age, perhaps, who would find it cool to be wielding directed energy weapons. You imported maybe those en masse to make up for the fact that you couldn't get the tuition fees to enslave the young people of military age, and you couldn't have a financial shock, right? Not yet, right? So that's where the immigrants come in, okay? So now in every country, and also Switzerland has its, trainloads of immigrants, you have all the conditions to build up a silent army of utterly stupid, really desperate, ruthless people who are going to kill their neighbors, right? That's what's happening. So for me, when I got off the bus in London, right, at first I thought, okay, there's, Andrew Parker, one of his superiors, having a wank with a phone call to the boarding desk, and now with all these young people like planted. But it wasn't all young people, it was also foreigners. So it was a mix of young people and kind of foreign looking people. I didn't see any, British people in tweed vests, though I had those gang stalkers too. But anyway, so that was the majority. These people were out at 11:30 p.m. at night doing gang stalking for Andrew Parker. But it spoke volumes, okay? Andrew Parker didn't realize that by parading his, set of gang stalkers, he will be showing his hand. But that's exactly what he did. So by parading those gang stalkers, I thought, okay, Andy, you hired a bunch of young people who are desperate because they're paying tuition fees, and you hired a bunch of immigrants, right? Now you will use these two groups mainly to kill people around the clock, to operate the directed energy weapons that are gunning people in hotels like they gun me, but also gun people in residential areas where you set up these pods of invisible control centers and people's homes and gang stalking collection points and, meeting places, and where you can park the weaponized cars and, then roam around the place and so on, and where you can stage these directed energy weapons. So I'm telling you that in the UK, these are the people who will be murdering you. Now, if you don't want to be murdered, okay, you have to find a solution for these people's financial desperation. And the answer is a debt amnesty. The answer in the UK, if you wanted to save the UK's ass, is a debt amnesty. It is to request the gold that is currently held in the global debt facility, and it's just waiting for the people of all the nations to demand it, okay? The board of governors of or board of directors of the World Bank is waiting for every nation to demand the gold that it is entitled to. And this is the gold that the Vatican crime cartel stole and put into a big trust fund, right? With serial number 666 at the end. But it's waiting for you guys. So if you want to survive Andrew Parker's death squads, you have to, well, first of all, defund the death squads, lock him up for life, get all his fucking assets, right? Freeze his assets and make his life miserable, and do the same for the senior leadership of the military and the military intelligence people, right? Of course, that's what I'm working on. But also you need a debt amnesty. Okay, you need to wipe all the tuition fees debts because they were ludicrous to start with, right? And you need to get all the benefit structures back in, such that it's not really worth for these thugs to be signing up for globalist death squads, and it is much more convenient for them to stay at home and watch EastEnders at 11:30 p.m. at night, or watch some video streaming service, instead of being out in around London, Paddington, gang stalking me. That is, and also killing me, by the way, right? Because shortly after in my hotel, I was gunned to bits. So that's what you have to do. It is crucially important that you do this debt amnesty, and that you requested gold from the Global Debt Facility at the World Bank, and that you reissue your own currency. Now, if any country issues a currency backed by gold, or actually the plan is to have the gold inside plastic, sleeves. It looks like our money now, but it contains, its weight in gold inside. If any country issues that currency itself, there is a law of system physics that says that currency will be sucked out of that country before you can even blink. And that's because everybody around the world will want to get hold of that real currency and keep it for safekeeping. It will become worth gold, and everything else will be worthless trash. So in other words, it is not possible for any country in this current status, in this current system status that we're in, to reissue their currency. We all have to do it together. And most importantly, all the really big countries like China, like the US, right, like the entirety of Africa and Asia and Europe, we all have to do it together to avoid that whoever's currency is, left, fiat currency, first of all, doesn't drop down to zero, but also to ensure that the money, and also these big countries, if a big country like China or the United States change this currency back to actual gold, which it could do, but it was only the US, I guarantee you that by the end of the day, there would not be any physical currency left. It would have been sucked out, right, by people desperately trying to get hold of it. It would be sucked out of the country. So, right, and this hard currency would then be traded globally. It would be smeared around globally, but it's like a big Hoover suction effect, okay? So all the currencies are so worthless and so shit that whoever has a real currency, they will lose it instantaneously, because the big pool around them will just suck it out, okay, to trade with it themselves, even behind closed doors, because that would be the future. So we all have to do it together. In other words, we have to have a global, right, move towards these real currencies. The entirety of Europe has to do it, the entirety of the United North America, the entirety of Latin America and Asia and Africa. We all have to do it together, and Australia. Right? We all have to do it together. And that's why there's this huge pressure. And unless we do, these gang stalkers will continue murdering us in our homes. Do you understand? So you have to bash Andrew Parker the fuck out of his position at the head of MI5, and the same with the entire equally psychopathic serial killing leadership of military intelligence in the UK, in the US, and everywhere else around Europe, and the world, to survive. And at the same time, you need to also dissolve these death squads that have been set up, because they have been trained now, they have been equipped, they have been networked, and they can be reassembled to kill you at any time. So we have to start thinking seriously about this. What the fuck are we going to do? Okay. So there's this court case, and I will do my best to start attacking these people and start having it shut down. But at the same time, I need people to start tackling the financial problem to get real currencies as quickly as possible. At the same time, I need people to start ferreting out these death squads and, I don't know, kick the door in and start smashing up equipment. And by the way, we also need to start smashing up 5G emitters very soon. Actually, we should have started already. But we need court orders to do that. And then we need to smash this equipment the fuck up, okay, to survive. And then, right, we have to get hold of all the databases of the intelligence agencies, because they will have the full communication data on all their death squads, right? And this data is held by military intelligence, and it's held by Lockheed Martin and by BAE Systems as well, presumably, right? It will be held by governments, and it will be held by banks, right? Because they're the superstructure, and the banks will also have all the financial transactions in their databases. So in other words, I want you all guys to look at these things that are happening and keep thinking in terms of the system. You remember how I told you that you have to step out of the maze and think, what does this mean in terms of the system? You have to keep doing that, right? This is what I tried to do with the gang stalkers, you know, who were planted between Paddington and my hotel. Step out and think about the system. And that's pretty bleak when you think about it like that. These people, I mean, they are doing gang stalking there in the moment, but, you know, later on that day or later on that month, they will be roving death squads, wielding directed energy weapons, gunning, you know, grandmothers and single mothers and children to death, right? For the depopulation mass genocide agenda. So how are we going to stop them, guys, right? We can stop them administratively and start, right, with the court cases. Then we need to stop them financially by freezing the assets of all these chiefs of the military and the intelligence agencies, right? And do the same thing with all the handlers and the gang stalkers and these front companies that have been set up to run the death squads and so on, right? Then we need to get hold of all the data from the banks, get hold of the data from Lockheed Martin and these big contractors, right? And then figure out who the people in these death squads were in all of our communities. Because I can tell you now that there are these death squads everywhere, in every community, everywhere around the globe. They have the snitches and they have the death squads, and they are all operational. Okay, so that's all we have to do. Court date, 12th of December, right? So keep that in mind. Now, I have some more stuff to show you. The good news is I now have 34 affidavits. Okay, so I've been blithering on for so long. Let me show you some stuff now. Okay, let me share my screen and show you stuff, because that's always, you know. Okay, so this is the good news. So we've got the court date fixed. The other good news is, let me show you. Okay, so you should know by now that I have two websites. One of them is called stop007.org. The other backup website, because they do like to switch off websites, is jointinvestigation.org. And if you go to the international affidavits here, you will see that we now have a total of 34 affidavits, equally male, female, right? Because they attack both equally. And down here, you have all these affidavits, 34, right? The other thing I did is that I updated these analysis results on the first 30. And let me see if I put in the plots. Oh, yes. I'm not sure if I showed you this last time. I think I did. So I'm just going to, you know, skim over this. These affidavits show the most common offenses. Okay, so you can download this PDF and put it in your court bundle and file it with your police report, because from this moment onwards, the police cannot claim that you are delusional. You are reporting a well-established crime where it's already known that over 90% of the cases will have surveillance and will have stalking and hacking, and directed energy weapons come in at over 80%. So if you're reporting stalking, surveillance, hacking, and directed energy weapon attacks, well, it's pretty clear you're talking about this criminality. right? Now, the other thing to note is that these things here, neurotech, voice to skull, and image to skull, they are all implant based, you know. So here's also the people who know that they have implants. Over half of the victims know that they have them. But know that neurotech, voice to skull, and image to skull are also all implant dependent. They all use implants, covert non-consensual implants. So that's it. And then here, oh yes, this is what I wanted to show you. Here's the list of countries involved in targeting. Here's how the targeting program exploded after the year 2000, right, when the Patriot Act came in. But I wanted to show you a little map that I did, kind of a visual diagram of what this targeting program looks like. Just a second. Here's the targeting map. Okay, let me share my screen. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is based on the affidavits that I've received, and it shows you, this is just the 34 affidavits, okay? So the more affidavits come in, the more countries will be covered. But already, based on these 34 affidavits, these people testified under oath that these are the countries that they were targeted in. So this means that all these countries around the world are in on it. They are in on the genocide, okay? And at the moment, it looks like, oh, Africa is fine and Latin America is fine. And, you know, some parts of Asia are fine. But really, it's not that rosy as it looks. That's simply because people in Latin America and Africa would not know about this survey, okay? So, you know, these are basically countries that I haven't reached yet. They don't know that I'm collecting this. But my personal assumption would be that whatever gets deployed in the Western countries, so North America and Europe, would have been guinea pigged and tested on people in China, in Africa, and in Latin America, because they have even less money than we have, and they can be much more easily enslaved. Okay, so in a sense, when you read this map, you should think, oh, hang on a second, the people down here, they would have been first, right? So of course they are, you know, being targeted as well. They will have also been implanted. They will have also had all this experimental stuff done to them, of course, right? So this is basically the proof from these 34 affidavits that the entire world is affected. All the governments of the around the world, all the militaries, all the secret services are in on it and are involved. Okay, so that is yet another reason why we have to stop. I mean, I understand the whole, you know, America first thing. What they were trying to do is basically protect your economy exactly to get all these fucking gang stalkers out of these deep state payrolls. I understand that, and it's laudable. But what I'm saying is also that, you know, when you, especially the Americans, have a habit of going like, oh, America, America, God save America. Well, if God only saves America, you're still fucked, my dears, because these are global processes. God can't, you know, do a currency reset just in America. God better do it all around the world, right? Or else your currency will be sucked out, right? And God can't just, you know, protect the Americans, because then all the gang stalkers and all the militaries from around the world are going to move in on you and kill you all anyway, right? So no, we can't. So what we really need to start talking about is God save planet Earth, right? And we are all in this together. It doesn't matter if you are in China or in Russia or in the United States, we are fighting the same crime cartel, and the same templates that are being deployed by Andrew Parker in London will be deployed by Gina Haspel in the US and abroad, okay? And will be deployed by the KGB, whose head, you know, whose head I don't even know, right? Maybe I should, right? I should learn all their names. They probably know mine. But, you know, so we better get this done together. We can't ignore any country. We can't just ignore the African countries like we did, you know, for decades and so on. We are fighting the same globalists. And keep this in mind when you're reading about China and China's move to mind control and social scoring. Keep in mind that this is not the Chinese doing it. since the Opium Wars, the Chinese mafia has been taken over by the Vatican, gay kitty fucking mafia, basically, right? They are controlled by the Rothschild Empire, just like the rest of the planet. So this is not the Chinese doing it. The Chinese at the top are basically puppets, right? And they are, again, old Europe, old money, Western people behind this. Okay, so keep that in mind. So stop talking about, oh, China is launching a military attack, or Russia is launching a military attack. Both the Chinese and the Russian people, just like the Americans and Europeans, we have too many problems to deal with to launch any fucking attack on anybody. Honestly, I think I'm, justified in saying that. If you disagree, type it in the chat, right? I mean, if you're somewhere in Timbuktu and you're like, no, we want to launch war against, Ohio, write it in the chat. But I think around the world, it's fair to say we have our own problems, right? And we don't want to launch any wars. So any wars that are launched are by this criminal network that are controlling key individuals in China, in Canada, in London, in Washington, D.C., and so on. Okay, so we all kind of know this, right? But what I'm telling you is that there are systems analysis reasons why this really is like that, and we don't have a choice. Okay, and as Catherine Austin Fitz always says, I think she refers mostly to the United States and cycling the accounts and getting rid of the black budgets and these big black pools of money. She always says, well, you can hate each other poor or you can hate each other rich, right? Now, hating each other poor is exactly this gang stalking system, which is a downward spiral. The more people you kill, the more you are annihilating your own market, the number of people you can sell stuff to, and the poorer you get as well. Okay, so killing is always hating each other poor. Now, there's a way to hate each other rich, right? And that is you can still hate each other as much as you like, but as long as you don't kill each other and cycle the currency together, right? It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you think. You will all get rich. And you have no idea how much money there's in the system because you don't see it day to day. It's not where you are, it is where these deep state people are. And they made sure that their money stays in closed circuits. Okay, you have to understand. Do you remember these logos on the deep state logos on all the brands, the car brands that had, the Knights Templar logo and so on, and the snake and all the stuff? Well, part of the cartel signaling, part of this labeling is to show cartel members which car is okay to buy. Okay, because you're paid by the cartel, but the cartel wants that you spend your money within the cartel and give it to other cartel members, right? It's kind of like a little circle with which they can bootstrap themselves, If you're a cartel member, you better not spend your money on external people paying for services by people who are not, Masons and not insiders. Okay. So if you are not an insider, you will not see how much money there's in the system. But if you just look at the dumbest, rapper, the dumbest Hollywood actor, and the dumbest music video star, and the dumbest gang stalker, they are stonkingly rich. They keep getting new cars. They live in flashy places. Why? Because their closed system has all this money sloshing around. And that money came from you. Okay? But you don't even know how rich you could be because you don't see that money in your side of the economy. Okay? So once this money is sloshing around equally everywhere in society, you can hate each other rich, right? So that's what this is about, right? Okay, so you absolutely have to understand this. I hope I managed to get this across to you. I have the map, the system map in my head, but it's so hard to convert it into spoken, words and then pass it on to you, hoping that when you hear it, you will have the same mental image that I have, but it's so important. So takeaway message from this little gang stalking episode in London is, oh shit, we need to have a debt amnesty. We need to get immigration under control. We need to make sure that it's not just young men of, soldier age coming to our countries. It has to be families. Their mother has to be there because their mother will take care of them, right? Make sure they don't, do something stupid. Their mother and their father has to be there. You have to allow families to come. Then it's okay. If you only take young men, you have imported a covert army. And that's exactly what they did in Germany. Okay, so can you see what I'm doing? I'm taking all the shit that Andrew Parker is serving me and has served me in London, and I'm trying to turn it into gold for you. Real gold, if you realize that you can get the gold that you're entitled to from the World Bank today. It's in the global debt facility and it's waiting for you. Okay, so. And then, of course, the other thing to take away, debt amnesty. It is so important. I talked about how the social security payments in the United Kingdom were withdrawn from the people on benefits and the especially disability benefits, and 120,000 disabled people killed themselves or died. That is a genocide. So the UK used this financial fraud of austerity, which is a total hoax, to murder 120,000 disabled people. Now, it doesn't get any more Nazi than that. Okay. But to stop those Nazis who started with the disabled people, and sure enough, we'll move on to you very soon with these directed energy weapon death squads. To be able to stop them, you need to, what's it called? Debunk this financial fraud of austerity. The thing you have to know is that the money that they say we are short of hasn't existed the moment it was created, or before the moment it was created. Okay, so we are not owing anybody anything. There is no debt. Country debt is a hoax. It's a scam. It's a method of enslaving via fraud. Okay, all of our countries are staunchly rich and every year generate so much money, it is stupid. Okay, we can pay for all of our disabled people. Of course we can. We can pay them a luxurious income. We can pay for all the people, all the young people to go to university, no problem. We can pay for healthcare, no freaking problem at all. We can pay for all this. But for that, you have to be aware of this and you have to call out their bullshit. You have to put in criminal complaints and you have to put in court cases against the financial fraud of austerity in the UK and elsewhere. And I'm serious. You have to take it to the court. You have to put in the documentation. You have to put it in proof. And you have to dig out the people who did it and who were talking about it, the finance department, who was running the finance department, which prime minister was promoting, austerity and so on. And you have to get them for genocide, for willful genocide based on financial fraud. And you have to do it because I don't have the time. I'm already attacking in the intelligence agency, But I'm serious. You have to get going with this. You, the person who's listening, you have to start thinking how you're going to file a court case because no one's going to do it for you. And these death squads are already roaming around London and Paris and Berlin and every other country around the world. Okay. So, sorry, this was super important and I had to get it into your heads. Everything else that follows now is also important, but not as important as this. So forgive me for my long verbal lecture. Now, let's get on to some fast news, okay? So I've got a bunch of things that I wanted to show you. Give me a minute because I have a whole long list. there was some developments, and the development will be speeding up. Okay, so everywhere around the world. Now let's start with the United Kingdom, because I was talking about this court case, you know. Yes, here we are. Now, on the 12th of December, on my court case, what I would like you to do is to make your way to the Royal Courts of Justice, okay? And I wanted to show you where they are. They are in London on the Strand, and keep in mind that I might be able to change the court date, but already familiarize yourself with the location. So you can find the Royal Courts of Justice. This is what they look like, you know, from outside. And the address is the Strand in London. So already start thinking how you're gonna get there. You know, it's a public court hearing, so you are allowed to attend. And then on the day when you come in, you will go in through this and down there. Once you pass the gate, there's a security gate. It's almost like these scanners at the airport. So these metal detector scanners. You put your bags onto an X-ray machine, just like at the airport, and then you go through, and you're entitled to go through. And then you go to the end of the building, take a left, and then go outside into the next building. And what you're looking for is court 37. Court 37. All right, that is the court for the injunctions. And the way this will be on the day on the 12th is that, oh, that's another thing I wanted to tell you. When I filled out the form, I thought, okay, how much time do I need to hear all the witnesses? And maybe, you know, half an hour each at least, because these witnesses are really important. And then I ended up with a rough estimate on, you know, for this court case of about 8 hours. That's really how long it will take, because we have to discuss the directed energy weapons, laser scalpels with which they slash my face, biowarfare, implants, neurotechnology, destruction of family life, and destruction of marriages, taking over people, a million things, okay? And the witnesses also have, you know, a lot to contribute. We know who the perps are. We can discuss all this. So I said 8 hours. Now, the court clerk looked at my form and he said, but you're also applying for an injunction. So he got rid of all the other stuff and he said, the injunction, okay, an injunction only has an hour. So it's half an hour or an hour you can go for. And I was like, okay, damn. So I have to go for the injunction first. But then I thought it's not even bad, because I am struggling to prepare my court case because of the torture. My head is being cooked, my hair is being burnt off. Sometimes I'm sitting here in so much pain from the gunning and the chip torture, I can't hold a thought. I really can't prepare a court case like this. So the same with my witnesses. They are so tormented and tortured, they can't really focus. So let's just have the injunction first. Let's stop all the attacks, and then let's be given time to write this up, because I've got a million references, terabytes of evidence, and I would like to be given time to write all that up, you know, without being tortured and raped and gunned and slashed and all this sort of stuff, and be able to sleep at night. So the court case on the 12th will only be 1 hour in court, but let the short duration not fool you, because it's super important, okay? In a sense, by splitting the court case, it opens the door for this to be kind of, you know, squashed again, like, you know, gunned to bits. And then they say, oh, we don't really need a real court case because there's nothing there. Look, and we're not going to give you an injunction. We're just going to gun you to death because it's cheaper. I mean, this is basically it, okay? We are now at a juncture where it is cheaper to murder me and my entire family and all my friends than to pay me the damages that I'm due based on what they have done to me in my life. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to create enough noise and enough presence in this 1 hour to get it, you know, bring it home to the judge that this is not going to go away. Even if I'm murdered and my entire family and all my friends are killed by these people, there are masses of people waiting to go next. And then the next person will quote everything I said and my murder on top. And we'll go and continue like that, and it's just going to escalate and escalate and escalate all the way into civil war, right? This is what we are looking at right now. So I need your presence there on the 12th, even if it's just an hour, okay? And we can try to think about how to make it worth everybody's while, you know, to come. Maybe we can have a discussion afterwards. Maybe we can, I don't know, if the weather is nice, go next door into the park and then have a meeting. Everybody can ask me all the questions they have. We can plan it out. We can turn it into an event afterwards, okay? We can think about all that, but I really need you there on the day. You have to make your presence felt. It's very important, okay? And then it will continue after that. So the other thing, the upshot of this 1 hour also is that whatever isn't in writing doesn't exist, okay? Because I will not have, if I've got 1 hour, I have half an hour, and the defendants have also half an hour, okay? So what can I cram into half an hour? Nothing, right? So everything has to be on paper. So in other words, if you are a victim and you are thinking about submitting, you know, an affidavit and become number 35 or, you know, number 36 and so on, do it now. I need your affidavit, well, by yesterday to be precise, but by the latest, I need it by the very latest, okay? I would say on the 24th of November. This is in, well, less than 2 weeks' time. So you need to fill out the tick box affidavit and have it not notarized, but have your signature witnessed within 2 weeks. And then you can enter this court case. And then I'm going to file all that. And, you know, it's possible that I might be able to file it later, you know, as this court case continues, but not sure. So if you want to be sure that your name appears and is mentioned as one of these, you know, mutilation slaves and torture victims and goes on record, you have to get it to me by the 24th of November. Very important, okay? And I will mention that in shorter broadcasts as well. So this is the upshot of this. Now, I want to show you another couple of links as well. So find out how to get to the royal courts on the 12th. Find out how you can still vote in the general election if you're British. And let's get this rolling. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is a couple more news. Oh, yes, very important. Very, very, very important. News from Julian Assange, okay? This is actually horrific news, but it is important that we discuss it and do something about it. There's now been reports. So Julian Assange appeared in court, and this article is from the 21st of October. And it says that Assange struggles to say his own name as he appears in court, right? And Assange told the judge he's up against a superpower with unlimited resources and appeared to be fighting back tears as he added, "I can't think properly." Okay, so the link to this article will be below, right? And here's the drawing. I also heard, I haven't seen any images of him, but I've also heard that he's losing hair, basically. Okay, so he's kind of, it looks like he's going bald. Now, I don't think he's going bald. I think his hair, like mine, is being burnt off with directed energy weapons. And probably with chip implants, because when you're sleeping in a Secret Service infested confined space like an embassy or prison, you can bet your rear side that you will be implanted head to toe. Okay, so I bet you that Julian Assange is implanted. He will likely have the very same eye implants that I have, the ones that glow in the dark under ultraviolet light, you know, and he will have a ton of implants on his scalp because the criminals will not pass up this chance of monitoring the stress and sadness and then try to pipe it back and induce suicidal thoughts and so on. But in doing all that, they are also causing brain damage. So what this is, I can't think properly, and not being able to say his own name is a telltale sign of directed energy weapon gunning to the head, of chip implants, and of neurotechnology. All three, probably all combined. Okay. Now there's another example like that, which is exactly the same. And this is also very, very important that we get the court to get them out. We really need the court to get them out. Now, the other example of this is Melanie Shaw. Okay. Melanie Shaw, after she went into prison up north. Okay, here's an image. Let me share my screen. Now, Melanie Shaw is the child abuse whistleblower, and she knows that a lot of, senior people in the establishment have been raping and murdering children, and she blew the whistle about that. Now, I want to draw your attention to this image here. This is Melanie Shaw before, and this is Melanie Shaw after 3 months in HMP Peterborough. And one of the things that is striking is facial asymmetry. Okay, facial asymmetry is, directly implying that this side of her brain was damaged. It could be a stroke, it could be a mini stroke, it could be directed energy weapon gunning, but you can definitely tell the striking facial asymmetry. So in other words, if you cover up her, her left side of the face, and then look at the face and then cover up the other side, you get 2 different faces. Okay, facial asymmetry, you would not have that here. So HMP Peterborough, it means automatically that HMP Peterborough is fitted out with directed energy weapons with which they are gunning their prisoners through the prison walls. And they are brain damaging their prisoners. Now, you have this Melanie Shaw, right? And then you have exactly the same thing with Assange. So he's in prison, she's in prison, and Assange deteriorated rapidly in prison. Now that means that these two, so HMP Belmarsh and HMP, so HMP for the Americans, it means Her Majesty's prison, okay? Because all the prisons belong to Her Majesty, are owned by her. So it means that these prisons are brain mutilating, brain maiming prisoners. And typically, when you put these directed energy weapons, I mean, not you, when they put the directed energy weapons inside the walls or next door, or wherever, they typically don't just, have one victim. They would be running brain maiming on everybody inside that prison. So this is one way you can have a handle on HMP Peterborough and HMP Belmarsh, by looking at all the other prisoners and looking for brain damage in them as well. Okay, because I bet you there will be scores of other victims. If I had to guess, the entire prison is built in a way where these DEWs, the direct energy weapons, are built, and the neurotech units are built into the walls. And you think it's a wall, but it's actually not. It has all this tech inside, and using microwaves and frequencies that pass through, a meter of concrete without problems, you can have exactly this. You can gun people with directed energy weapons inside their cell. You can induce heart problems, heart attacks, strokes, blood clots, everything. Okay, so, and we already know from the other cases, like the one of Gwen Kennedy and the Holy Spirit Croydon so-called care home, right, and the one of John Bridges Kennedy, when these criminals, and this is what Wednesday Kennedy, her daughter, said, when these criminals, the crime cartel and the Masons, get hold of the body, they'll start, maiming, torturing, and killing. But they want to own the body. They want to get hold of the body. And that's exactly what happens when people go into an elderly care home, when people go into a disability care home, children's care home, a hospital, or a prison. The crime cartel gets hold of your body. And if you look carefully, all these institutions started operating the same way. Both the prison and the hospital and children's care homes and elderly care homes started banning family members and started barring them right? Started preventing them from having access to their loved ones. This is highly criminal because they do not own the person. They do not own the body, but nevertheless, they act like that. And that's because this is what they want. They want to control the body, and then they start maiming and experimenting and torturing and killing. And all of these institutions are exactly the same. Children's homes, elderly care homes, hospitals, and prisons. If you ever end up in one of these institutions where they control your body, and oh, by the way, psychiatric wards as well, of course, right? They can do whatever they want with you. At least this is what they think, and this is what they do in practice. Okay. So, but I want us to now move away from just focusing on Julian Assange and start focusing on the perpetrators. You guys know who Julian Assange is and where he is, yet most of you do not know who runs that mutilation camp, who runs HMP Belmarsh. I want that name banded around 24/7 in the media. You know? Who runs HMP Peterborough? Right? So this is, and you should look it up. I'm not going to look it up for you because you need to do the personal investment of Googling it yourself so that you remember the information. If you just watch me do it, you will not remember. So who the hell is maiming? Who, you know, the buck stops with the director of the hospital. Who is the director of the hospital? Sorry, the prison, because Julian Assange is in hospital, but still in prison. Right? Now that person would be personally responsible for the directed energy weapon maiming and brain maiming of Julian Assange. And that person and his entire crew of cronies needs to go into jail themselves. They basically have to switch from the director's office into a jail cell and stay there, right? And we have to bring that about. So, you know, this is very important. Actually, on this topic of Julian Assange, his mother tweeted recently, I think, or maybe even today. Where is it? Here. Okay. Let me show you this tweet, because this is also important to keep in mind. Okay. So Mrs. Christine Assange, and you can follow her at Assange Mrs. Yeah, MRS, right? So she wrote, before WikiLeaks, when Julian Assange was 23, he founded one of the first internet provider services in Australia, Suburbia.net, Australian Public Access Network, non-profit ISP run by volunteers trying to help underprivileged people have internet access too. So imagine Julian Assange is a guy who, as a young man, was this socially engaged, right, and this bright and clever to set up a service provider. Okay, now he is what we would call our, you know, thought leader, our intelligentsia, okay? And he is being sadistically brain maimed by the director of HMP Belmarsh and his, you know, group of criminal thugs who, if I had to bet, are gibbering morons. So we have highly intelligent people who already at the age of 23 were setting up companies, right? And thinking about other people and thinking about their communities and their countries, and they are being sadistically brain maimed and tortured by fucking thugs, right? That's what's happening. And nobody in the news is pointing this out. But this is the key. The crime cartel and the Masons have planted fucking gibbering, spazzing morons, right? Total fucktards into these prisons who are thugs. They are criminal thugs. They are psychopaths. They are human trash. And they are maiming people ruthlessly to death. Now, if you happen to be working at HMP Belmarsh and you are saying, I don't know what you're talking about because I'm not like that, well, you're probably part of the patchwork that exists in every institution. You will have completely corrupt people making up the black part of the patchwork, and you will have, you know, the normal people making up the maybe slightly gray to white area of this patchwork. So, you know, if you're not like that, don't be insulted, but then it's your job to sort out what the hell is happening in HMP Belmarsh. You too can remove the director from the inside, but you will have to do it. If you don't do it, well, you are an accessory to this crime. Right? In fact, we are all accessories to this crime if we don't have these people removed. Right? As soon as you read articles like that, Assange struggles to say his own name, and, you know, he can't think properly. What you immediately have to think is, okay, this means HMP Belmarsh and this like hospital wannabe, you know, attachment to HMP Belmarsh is deploying directed energy weapons and neurotechnology, right? It is torturing people to death, Nazi style. And that's what needs to be said. And yet again, this is what's not said. And that's actually the only thing that's important about this. And we need to get Julian Assange the fuck out from the control, from under the control of these criminal thugs. Because these are criminals. They are psychotic degenerates. They might masquerade like the director of the prison, but they are not. They are most likely intelligence agents, intelligence operatives, and most likely psychopaths and degenerates. And with degenerates, I also mean sex perverts, because the entire secret service and secret society architecture is based on control files based around sexual perversion and stuff like that. So by definition, the people who do stuff like that on order will be, you know, because that's how they selected, psychopaths and sex perverts and degenerates of all, you know, shades, right? But immediately when you read these articles, that's what you have to start thinking in the back of your mind. It's like, oh shit, directed energy weapons, neurotech, degenerates, psychopaths, how the fuck are we going to stop them? And how the hell are we going to get Julian Assange out? His body needs to be out from under the control of these psychotic degenerates. ASAP. And remember that you have to save Assange, because what's happening behind the scene is exactly what I said in the beginning, an Intelligenzaktion. Okay? Intelligenzaktion. So to remind you what that is, it is what the Nazis did in Poland. Okay? Intelligenzaktion. For those of you who are new to this, it's this, and you can see it in practice right now in HMP Belmarsh, where gibbering thugs are brain mutilating a highly intelligent man, right? Intelligenzaktion is what was the secret mass murder conducted by Nazi Germany against the Polish intelligentsia, and this was teachers, priests, physicians, et al. So these days it's the same, plus internet entrepreneurs, physicists like myself, you know, YouTubers who are really enlightened, and so on and so on. And look how they did it early in the Second World War, right? And this is what it looked like. The Nazis rounded these people up and gunned them down in the middle of the street. Now, what should have happened is, as these Nazis were standing there, people, but of course, what the Masons do is they clear the buildings, and this is how this location has been selected so that nobody in the upper windows can take a gun and gun these fucking Nazis into the neck from behind. This is what should have happened. As these Nazis were ready to gun down the intelligentsia, the rest of the population should have had their wits about to think, hang on a second, if these people go, we won't be able to tell our head from our ass, because we're not as clever as these. So if we want to survive, we better gun these people the fuck down, right? Now, this was 1940s, Nazi Germany, right? Now, it's exactly the same. Thugs are gunning this intelligent man down. They're doing it one by one, and, you know, individually. They're gunning this man to death in prison. So what we need to do, I'm not saying we need to gun the director of HMP Belmarsh down, although, you know, there's such a thing as natural law, but what we need to do is get him in court and say, this is brain mutilation. What this means is that weapons of mass destruction are being deployed in HMP Belmarsh and this prison complex, this hospital complex where Julian Assange is. Okay, and weapons of mass destruction, right, are also being deployed where Melanie Shaw is. Here, HMP Peterborough. These are weapons of mass destruction. Forensics cannot really trace it back to the source. And all this is part of a big fat Intelligenzaktion, which you now know how to spell. Okay, Intelligenzaktion. Literally, that's what this is. It is action against anybody who's intelligent by total thugs. So very, very, very important. Okay, now let me briefly check that you guys can still follow me and that I'm still on being broadcast. Okay, it looks like, oh my goodness, over 300 people are watching live. This is the most I ever had. Okay, so this is great. Now, let me make it worth your while. I'm trying to give you all the crucial things, you know, in all this. I'm sorry I'm rambling because I'm formulating this as I speak, and my brain was damaged not that long ago, like 5 minutes before the broadcast. So I'm trying to my best, and it's much harder than you realize. But okay, so now let's pick up some speed because I've got some more news. And by the way, I would like to thank all the people who send me links, okay? Links and information. I get a lot of links, you know, kind of from all around the world, no doubt, probably also from the intelligence agencies, but also from real, genuine researchers who are genuinely trying to help. And in every broadcast, I would like to express my deepest thanks for to you for doing that, because if you wouldn't send me these links, I wouldn't know about this stuff. I don't have enough hours in the day to know about all these things. Okay, so very, very important. Now, this is an important link. It's going to a court case. It's a link to a court case. Let me just put it in. Sorry, this is the Daily Mail website, which is a real pain to look at every single time because of the adverts. But okay, so it turns out, surprise, surprise, MI5 really does have a license to kill. The spy agency has secretly allowed informants to murder, kidnap, and torture for decades, a tribunal has heard, right? Now, so sorry about this stupid advert. Sorry, let me just try to scroll down. So 4 human rights organizations are taking legal action against the UK government. By the way, human rights organizations have been polled about all this mutilation torture for decades. That it's almost too little too late. What I suspect is happening here is that they are, you know, slowly coming forward with this information, but just because of the pressure from, you know, other victims taking court action, and they're trying to set the tracks by having this court case as a precedent, okay? So we have to somehow overtake these human rights charities to be able to set the pace. Now, in this article, I will show you, once I get past the adverts, where the kind of the tricks and the lying and the fraud is, okay? So I'll try to get there. So, okay. So they claim that there was a policy that allows MI5 agents to commit crimes and get immunity from justice. Crimes are by agents employed by security services, London Tribunal told. Now, first of all, vocabulary, okay? In Britain, the intelligence agencies insist that if they are, employees of MI5 and MI6, they are intelligence officers. And if they are, you know, assets who are hired and deniable assets and snitches and, you know, all the other stuff of operatives, they are agents. So officers and agents. Now, I'm sorry, this whole officer thing is kind of harking back to the fact that MI5 is military intelligence, so like a military officer. But really, let's just call them fucking agents, because this whole thing breaks down when you realize, hang on a second, here they're talking about agents employed by the security services. Well, that sounds like officers to me, right? It sounds like you are all paid by these people. So you're either all officers or you're all agents. So let's just stick with fucking agents, okay? So be really on your guard, because this kind of nomenclature is almost like neurolinguistic programming. You know, what they're trying to say is, oh, no, 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 we are here, the officers, right? And immediately you're thinking decorated military officer who's maybe seen some action, might have had a chance to die for his country. But no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sex perverts hiring other psychotics to murder. Okay, so let's not bring the term officer into this at all, because it will be priming people to think military officer. No, think sex pervert, think fucking agent. Literally, fucking as a verb, agent. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. Now, MI5 has been illegally allowing its informants to commit serious crimes, potentially including murder, kidnap, torture, and torture for decades, the tribunal has heard. Now, what does the potentially including murder mean, for fuck's sake? When I have been emailing these human rights charities and the judiciary and the police about this, and so have thousands of others, we know that they commit murder and kidnap and torture. In fact, they are doing it as this tribunal hearing is happening. As this tribunal hearing and this court case is running in London, I am being tortured and gunned to shit in London by Andrew Parker. There is no maybe about this, right? Not potentially, no, quite factually. And this is a big fucking difference, okay? So what they're trying to tell you, and keep in mind that the Daily Mail has also been celebrating satanic ritual sacrifice in other articles, okay? Remember that I think it's the Mail that's also been criticized for posting images of teenagers who are like 15 and 16 and going all pervy on them, right? A bit like a pedophile. So I'm pretty sure that was the Mail. Now, this outfit, right, this Daily Mail thing is a globalist thing controlled by the Council on Foreign Relations that runs the genocide that's being executed by MI5. So it's basically the Daily Mail being a front organization of the Council on Foreign Relations. Oh, sorry, I should show you the diagram that I'm referring to, okay? In case there are always new people. Today there are over 300, and some of them might not have seen this, okay? So let me take you again to the pages of the Swiss Propaganda Research Institute and their network diagrams. Okay, now they don't have, they don't have one for the United Kingdom yet, but they do have one for the American empire, okay, media empire. So what I'm talking about is this, okay? Here are all the news media that you will recognize, right? Fox News, Financial Times, blah, 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 Time, Telegraph, CNN, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out through these people, right, who are controlling these newspapers, they are all controlled by the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, or the Bilderbergers. Up here, that's where all these people run together. And you can look at this diagram and you can find out who these people are by looking at their names. There's a number here, and you will find a number down there, and you'll find all these people. They have been identified, okay? So the spider's web is right here. Now, this site, it's called the Swiss Propaganda Research, right, Institute here. They have plots for the USA. Austria looks slightly different because they've mapped it differently. It's the same people, Germany and Switzerland, okay? And also, but they don't have one for the UK, but it's exactly the same. So here for Germany, the entire German media landscape, again, controlled by the Council on Foreign Relations, NATO, and the National Security Council via the Atlantic Bridge, the Trilateral Commission, and the Bilderbergers. And we know who these corrupt motherfuckers are. They are photographed and listed here. Okay, now, once you have the Council on Foreign Relations controlling German media and the entirety of US media, you can bet that they are also controlling British media, right? Sure, the same deal. Now, it will also be in Britain this network will be controlling the entirety of British media, the entirety, so also the Daily Mail. But it's also the Council on Foreign Relations that is running and is involved in the global genocide. So what is the worth of their front organization, the Daily Mail, reporting about another branch of their same genociding enterprise, you know, now being up in court? Like, what do you expect? Do you expect truthful reporting that will leave you enlightened and the wiser? Or do you expect to be bullshitted at every which turn, right? So, I mean, you can approach this article thinking, okay, I know I'm going to be, you know, they will try to fuck me over. The question is how and where. And it, as I'm trying to show you, it already starts with the first sentence, right? They don't mention that these human rights organizations have been notified about this a gazillion times, right? They're still talking about MI5 agents, and later on in the article, this will become clear how they're trying to, these MI5 little shitters are trying to weasel out. I won't let them, right? Agents employed by the security services. That's already a, you know, a contradiction in their own terminology. But anyway, so let's read this, okay? So potentially including murder, kidnap, and torture. Everybody involved, the Daily Mail, these human rights charities, and the courts knows that there's no potentially. It is factually, okay? Now, 4 human rights organizations are taking legal action against the UK government over policy they claim purports to permit MI5 agents to participate in crime and effectively immunizes criminal conduct from prosecution. The groups argue that the effect of the policy, which they say has been in place since at least the 1990s and was kept secret for decades, is for the executive to grant itself the power in secret to dispense with the criminal law enacted by Parliament. Now, the 4 charities are Privacy International, which I've contacted and they didn't give a shit, Reprieve, which I contacted, they couldn't give a flying fuck, the Committee on the Administration of Justice, no idea who they are, and the I don't know how, PAT, I don't know how to pronounce these Irish surnames, Centre, are asking the Investigatory Powers Tribunal to declare the policy unlawful and grant an injunction restraining further unlawful conduct. Oh, it's curious. It's the same thing I asked the Investigatory Powers Tribunal in 2016. Do you know how much the Investigatory Powers Tribunal gave a fuck? Not at all. Not at all. And I was asking the same thing. I was saying, look, these guys are committing crimes, including murder and torture. Please give me an injunction to restrain further unlawful conduct. IPT couldn't give a flying fuck. So what happened? What happened over the last 3 years? Why is nobody mentioning this? Why is nobody mentioning this? It was part of my court case how the IPT turned me down. In my high court case, nobody's mentioning that there was already a precedent for this, right? Now, when I approached the IPT as an actual mutilation slave and torture victim, I was labeled with that my case and my claim is frivolous or vexatious. And now you have these human rights charities like Privacy International and Reprieve, and they are not frivolous or vexatious. Why? Is it maybe because they're staffed by intelligence agents and you're trying, you know, now that you realized you can't get out of this, trying to pave the way a certain, you know, in a certain manner for subsequent cases to be heard that way or decided a certain way? But there's all this stuff lacking. Right? Why is it not mentioned? I mean, you would think that in this article where it's about the potential to commit torture and murder, they would mention maybe some precedents where exactly that happened. For example, not just me, but many victims whose name I can't name right now for legal reasons. So I'm just going to name myself. But remember that there are thousands others, like Dr. Catherine Horton, who's actually been tortured and is continuing being tortured and was actually tortured in London while this was heard. No mention of that. Or let's talk about murder. Let's talk about Darrim Daoud, an Iraqi businessman who was tortured and he was murdered by MI5. Quite blatantly. He was executed right there in the UK. And then the coroner covered it up for MI5. Darrim Daoud. Now, let me get his name and his face for you so that you know whom I'm talking about. He is an actual murder victim. He was murdered. He put up a YouTube video just days before his murder showing a huge burn on his face. Okay. Here it is. Now there, some of his supporters were trying to get, there was an entire court case to reopen the inquest or have an inquest to start with. So this is how his name is spelled. I ask you to research this, Darrim Daoud inquest, right? And there are all these letters asking for this whole thing to be reopened, which were ignored. But you will find many links about Darrim Daoud. And there used to be a video about him. Yes, this is the video here that he posted there, and it's 14th November, I think the year, I can't remember the year, but you will see he is out of it. He's exhausted. Hang on, I think I have to share my screen while sharing my microphone. So give me a second. Let me reshare this and share computer sound. Okay, so this is what he posted shortly before being murdered by MI5. And I say MI5 because there's nobody else around, okay? You know, I mean, honestly, at first, I suspected the Tooth Fairy, but it turns out she had an alibi, right? She was hanging out with the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, so it wasn't the Tooth Fairy, which only leaves MI5. Now, look at this carefully, okay? So now we have this video, and he's showing...
a burn I received on my face last night from directed energy weapons, as you can see.
Yeah, I had those. I still have them. And this is exactly the size of a pencil beam, by the way. Okay, so he posted that, and you can also see he's tired. He's exhausted. He sounds out of it. Okay, why? Because sleep deprivation is part of this program. And then they want you to be all dazed and just, you know, your mind is worked. And most likely, I mean, if they were, you can see that they were aiming for his eye, or maybe the beam was going through like this into his brain. You don't know, but it's a pretty intense pencil beam that was so intense it burned his skin, right? So remember, when you're lying down in bed, if it's pointed from a neighbor or maybe the roof or wherever the hell this directed energy weapon is hidden, it can go in at a slanted angle and burn your brain, right? It goes through. It went already through the ceiling, right? And the wall is going through your skull and into your brain. So, you know, but they have done this. And then shortly thereafter, Darrim Daoud was found dead. So let me just, Daoud dead. And he died. He was found dead. Yes, here. So here, there was an article on the Crawley Observer. Hang on, share screen. Here, family's tribute to Crawley rail death man. Darrim Daoud, 34, he was only 34 years old, of Blackheath, was found by the railway line at Balcombe Tunnel near Parish Lane in Crawley, Sunday, 15th November, and the last video was the 14th November. Okay, so he might have been dead the next day. Now, why would he be dead around rail tracks? Okay, why would he just die so suddenly? Right? So yeah, that's right. November 15th, right? And his video was November 14th. So he posts this and the next day he's dead. Right? So what the fuck is that? What this is murder by MI5. And if you were unsure if it is MI5 or maybe the Easter Bunny lied and it is actually the Tooth Fairy, the way to tell the two apart is when you read these reports about how Darrim Daoud died, right? And you read the links about the inquest, okay? Let me go back. Because then once you read about how this whole, here, I think John Ullman did a lot of work, about this, right? And he tried to appeal the entire inquest, but he's also reporting about this massive corruption about the inquest that didn't actually take place. Okay. So stuff with the coroner not doing his work, not doing any work at all, and so on. Now that is a telltale sign for the Masonic network that has all these plants in society at key positions kicking into action. If it were the tooth fairy wouldn't have planted somebody to be a coroner who's a sick bastard, right? And who will sign off on murder. But MI5 would, because that's what they did, you know, in their current incarnation and in previous centuries in their previous, you know, names. That's what they do. If you want to murder somebody, you make sure that the local police chief is a corrupt bastard and has maybe a sex pervert control file, and the coroner, and maybe the local judge, or if you can't corrupt all the judges, you will corrupt most of them, and make sure that on the day you put a corrupt judge there, right? That's how it works. But when you see this large-scale corruption, it is always a telltale sign that this was murder by the intelligence agencies, and they are activating their network to cover it up. Okay? So this is why I can say that the tooth fairy is not guilty, 100% sure, right? But MI5 is. Now, if you want to find out whose bloody fault it is, and who's, you know, with whom this is going to stop, right? This buck, you just look up the name. You know, what year was Darrim Daoud killed in? I think it was in 2009. I think so. Let me just check, just so that I don't get this wrong. Or was it 2012? Either way, let's take either date, right? And then you go to Wikipedia and you type MI5 Wiki. And then you go there, and I'll just show you in a moment. Here. Okay, so easy, guys. So easy. You have to start doing this. When you have a case like that, you go to the Wikipedia page for MI5, right? And then you go down and you click Directors of the Security Service, and then you go 2009 or 2012. That makes it Jonathan Evans, this happy guy whose face we just seen. That dude. He's responsible for this. It's him. Only he and his club of sex perverts could burn somebody's face with a pencil beam, have him killed the next day, and have the coroner go through all sorts of, you know, contortions not to actually analyze what happened. Only him and his cronies. So guess who's going to jail for murder? Right? It is literally that simple by now, because these people are that overt. Right? Had it not been Jonathan Evans and his crew of sex perverts and serial killers, well, surely, you know, he would think, oh my God, this guy posted something that looks strikingly like directed anti-weapon attacks on our watch in the United Kingdom. Oh, you know, it's none of us. So this means there must be a directed energy weapon wielding, weapons of mass destruction wielding crew of hillbillies killing people, right? And letting them post on YouTube. That's going to look really bad on us. It almost looks like there are terrorists loose in the country that we don't know about. What would happen? Well, right, there would be the most precise inquest, and these people who did it would be nabbed by lunchtime, right? But that didn't happen, right? Darrim Daoud supporters had to fight for a proper inquest, had to beg and do all this, and shit all happened. And then what really happened in the country is that many more death squads were spawned and are now killing people all across the United Kingdom and the Crown colonies, right? Like the United States, like Canada, like Germany, like the Commonwealth. Whose fault is that? The Tooth Fairy? A random gang of directed energy weapon wielding hillbillies? Or maybe the sex perverts and assassins run by Jonathan Evans? Anyone's guess, right? So that's the murder bit. And this murder bit was well known, okay? You might not have known about it, but the Daily Mail did, the Investigatory Powers Tribunal did, and these human rights charities did. So why is this not mentioned? Why are they running a court case in the Investigatory Powers Tribunal and they're not mentioning these key facts? Why they're still sticking to potential murder when there has been a real-life murder case of Darrim Daoud? Why? Well, it's because it sounds like, it smells like they're trying to cover something up. Now the question is, right, who the fuck are these people who are involved? Who the fuck is the Daily Mail and, you know, Privacy International and the Investigatory Powers Tribunal? Well, I showed you who the Daily Mail are. They are a front organization for the Council on Foreign Relations, which really, for all intents and purposes, is a secret society connected to other secret societies involved in genocide, right? That's the Daily Mail for you. Privacy International and Reprieve, I haven't checked, but somebody maybe check if they are also like all the other charities run by George Soros and again connected to globalists and genocide, you know, promoting people. I don't know. That's your research, right? Now, who the Investigatory Powers Tribunal is, I can tell you quite precisely based on their own statistics. Okay, very important. Now, if you go to my website, stop007.org, I hope it's still up. I hope it wasn't sabotaged. It's one of those links that would get sabotaged first. But this is very important. It's getting more important by the day. So go to stop007.org, scroll down to the research library, which is this bookcase. Scroll down and let's find the evidence of systemic corruption. And the very first thing you will find here is a little article I've written about the Investigatory Powers Tribunal, okay? Where I'm using systems analysis to prove that they're a bunch of corrupt fuckers. Now, looking back, I'm almost using too much text and too few diagrams, but the take-home message from this is in the last paragraph. It's only 2 pages, okay? So step number 1 is you look at the statistics of the IPT, and you can tell that I did that in early 2016 because it goes up to 2015 only. Now you look at the number of complaints received, which is part of the statistics they publish. You add all these numbers, and then you look at how many were decided in favor of the complainant, and it's basically fuck all, right? So then you just divide one by the other, and then you realize that out of these over 1,100 cases, the court only decided in favor of the claimant in 0.2% of the cases. So in 99.8% of the cases, these, it's 99.1, sorry, it's this number, right? They are decided against the defendants, right? But also note that out of these, right, there's a huge loss in cases. I mean, there are 10 cases here, and there are over 1,100 here, right? Is that the total number that the IPT received, or is there some other cases that are lost somewhere? Now, you can estimate how many cases the IPT is covering up and not even allowing into their statistics to start with by using systems analysis. That's why I love it. It's very simple. The logic goes like this. The IPT is policing the secret services, right? Yes. So all the complaints about the secret services should go to the IPT, right? Yes, that's how the court was set up. Now, how many complaints do we expect to be generated every year about the secret services? Now you say, well, we don't know because they're secret. But that doesn't matter if you use systems analysis. It is very simple. And it's explained here in the beginning. Okay, the first page is about that. Don't read it now because then you won't listen. Read it later. I'll put the link below. It's very simple. You just lean back in your armchair and you go, okay, let's do an estimate based on the system. The secret services are a national system, a nationwide system. Now, any big system is throwing up problems, right? Things get screwed up, even if this were a good system with the best of intentions, which frankly it is not. It's organized crime, right? But if it were what it says on the tin, if it were an anti-terrorist, you know, terror fighting good thing, it would still throw up problems despite the best of intentions, okay? Now, you can precisely estimate how many problems you expect that system to throw up naturally by comparing it to another benign system of equal size. If you're looking at a national surveillance provider, you can compare it to a national telecommunications provider that has publicly known customers, not publicly, but, you know, known customers who, if they have a problem, will go to public, you know, fora. They will complain to the ombudsman or complain to the national telecommunication providers and so on. And those numbers are public and they're known. The point is, these are systems of equal size because they're both nationwide, right? One system is trying to surveil the entire United Kingdom. The other system is trying to connect the entire United Kingdom. Okay, so roughly speaking, they're the same size. Now, how many natural problems are thrown up by the national, you know, telecommunication providers? Well, the number is publicly available because you can look at how many cases go to the ombudsman per day, right? And I think if I remember correctly, it's something like 300 cases get reported per day, okay? So this is in the in this paper here. I'll point it out where you find it in the text. So Ofcom, this is the telecommunication regulator in the UK, they receive about 300 complaints per day for all of the telecommunication providers together. So for the entire UK telecommunication network. Now, the cases that go to the ombudsman are so serious that BT and other phone companies cannot resolve it through their customer services. So in other words, somebody seriously screwed up and BT and others are embarrassed about this. Now, that's exactly the type of cases which would have to go to the IPT to have it resolved, right? At least that many. In fact, because MI5 doesn't have customer services, many more cases would have to go to the IPT to be resolved because there's no way to resolve it with MI5 directly. And I can actually vouch for that, right? So in other words, we can say we expect 300 serious complaints per day to go to the IPT, just using systems analysis, right? And then we can say, well, how many actually did go there? So we would expect naturally there to be 100, roughly rounded, 110,000 cases to go to the IPT. 110,000 cases should go to the IPT yearly. Instead, they only receive 1,100, right? Curiously, that's a factor of 100 less. So where exactly do you lose a factor of 100 of cases? Well, I think the answer is very straightforward. You lose it by telling them to fuck off because their claim is frivolous or vexatious. And you just keep doing it. And then you're just silently sending, you know, something like, what would that be? 1,000, 108,000, 108 and a bit, 109,000 letters quietly every year to everybody who complains and say, fuck off, frivolous and vexatious, hoping they will never come back. And then you have a very reduced set of 1,000 cases where people are so persistent, they don't, you know, allow you to tell you to fuck off. And then out of those, you will just brush them aside by, you know, giving them, you know, fraudulent judgments and saying, no, we're not deciding in your favor. And then out of 110,000, you will reduce it down to 10, and you will give those 10 right. Now, I bet you that those 10 cases are handpicked, right? Because MI5 would be fucking stupid if those 10 cases weren't handpicked. And sure enough, back in 2015, when I looked at their statistics, the cases that were decided in the favor of the claimant were things like, oh, my dog pooped on the council's lawn and there was a CCTV camera that filmed me and then the council fined me, but this is based on mass surveillance, so this is not allowed, right? And shit like that. I mean, yeah. That's seriously, that was one of their cases, if I remember correctly. It was dog fouling and a CCTV camera on council property. So by using that case, and I bet you this guy, you know, was an MI5 agent who walked his dog there, ensured his dog actually crapped on the very lawn that's watched by the CCTV camera so that they can have this case to fill the 10 cases they have to make up. And it wasn't even 10 cases per year. It was 10 cases over several years. Several fucking years. I mean, just look at this, okay? 10 cases over the 5 or 6 year period from 2010, including down to 2015. 10 cases over 6 years, right? So you would have your little fucktards, right, have to dream up 10 situations that you would take to the IPT and have a little fake court case over, right, to fill the statistics. I mean, it's pissing laughable, right? It's a fucking fraud. But the good thing is you can turn it around, use systems analysis, and you can precisely measure the size of the fraud. And the size of the fraud is exactly 99.1%. Okay, so 99.8% of serious problems don't ever make it to the tribunal. These are the 110,000 cases that you would expect, but they are nowhere to be seen. And then out of those, right, you knock out 99.1%, which is basically this thing here that appears in the statistics. So your overall success rate overall is 0.0015%. Okay, per 100. So in real numbers, you have to factor in 2 more zeros. I mean, this is a fucking joke. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, this is the IPT, and all the numbers that I showed you here in this table come from the website of the IPT. And the link for that is actually included here, right, in this document. Right? So, that's the IPT. Factor this in when you're reading this article. It's like, hang on a second. To me, it sounds like corrupt assholes are reporting about corrupt assholes going before really corrupt assholes having a fake court case. Right? Doesn't quite look the same now anymore, does it? So that's what we're talking about here, okay? Man, and you know, gosh, please, if you take away anything from this broadcast, is that you always have to factor all these things in to undo the neurolinguistic programming that they are trying to play on you. And the trick is by just using different words, by withholding information, and by putting in pictures of very imposing looking buildings. Because when you look at this, you think, oh my God, I assume that these people know what they're doing. But keep in mind that here, I think you're looking at the MI5 building. So the IPT building is not going to look anything like that, right? So you have this Masonic architecture with the roses and yeah, blah, 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 right? Now, listen to the details. At the start of a 4-day hearing in London yesterday, Ben Jaffe, QC, said the security service are permitted under the policy to authorize criminal conduct for a variety of purposes, including any national security purpose or maintaining the economic well-being of the United Kingdom. Ooh, isn't that interesting? Now, first of all, national security is a Masonic term and is strictly applied to the nation of Freemasons. Keep that in mind. It's this parallel society. It's not your security, you schmucks. It is their nation security, this parallel society within the UK. It is the security of the gang stalkers, the directed energy weapon death squads, and Andrew Parker. And when you're suing their ass, of course, you're putting them into danger. You're psychologically terrorizing them by all the anxiety you cause them. You're a terrorist for, daring to defend yourself and your children from these death squads. How dare you, right? But remember, national security, in real terms, how it's actually used, means that. It means the nation of Freemasons, which is a global nation, by the way. Now, the other thing is maintaining the economic well-being of the United Kingdom. Isn't that an interesting turn of phrase? What could be the economic well-being of the United Kingdom if, let's say, it were based entirely on global asset stripping? If it were entirely based on the global drug trade? What if it turned out that the Queen's assets would just collapse if she wouldn't have any revenue, let's say, as a hypothesis, from the drug revenue? Would you then be a terrorist for trying to help people, come clean and get off the drugs within the UK? Yeah, you would be directly damaging the income the Queen makes. And I'm not making this case up. There was the case of this lady, I can't remember if her surname or her first name was Louise. Forgive me, it's that long ago. But what's important is what she was doing. She was helping women, especially people in the lesbian community, get off heroin and hard drugs. She was a counselor. She was very good at it, okay? And she focused on the lesbian community because guess what? If you're lesbian, you feel excluded, you're much more likely to get, onto hard drugs because they're an anesthetic, right? So she got them off these drugs, and guess what? MI5 started terrorizing her, and I think might do so to this day, right? So why? Well, because she was damaging the economic well-being of the United Kingdom. And remember, it's the kingdom. It's not the economic well-being of the subjects. It's that of the United Kingdom. Understand? Get it? Get it? Get it? Right? They're saying it here right in your face. But that's what it means, right? So, and as soon as you did that, you threatened the national security of criminals, or the economic well-being of a drug cartel. They authorized criminals to commit crimes against you. Not surprising, is it? Okay, so he added that the agents in question are not officers of the security service, but they are recruited and given directions by MI5. Oh, what's his face again, this barrister? Mr. Ben Jeffy QC, didn't he sneakily sneak that in to save the asses of these MI5 officers? Right? I mean, let's read that sentence again. So this is Ben Jeffy QC being quoted in direct speech, right? So he must have said it, sure, right? So he added that the agents in question are not officers of the security service. Remember the difference I said between officers and agents? Okay, agents are the lowlife. Officers, like military officers, are those who maybe sit in the MI5 building and have a desk, right? But what's the difference? They're all sex perverts, they're all criminals, so this is splitting hairs. Why is, Ben Jeffy QC splitting hairs? Well, because they are splitting off their deniable assets now and want to see them, they are jettisoning the ballast, right? They're detaching. It's almost like a rocket as it's taking off and it's throwing off the fuel tank, right? The fuel tank is detaching and falling down into the atmosphere to be burnt up. That's what's happening here, because they want to save the asses of the officers while getting rid of the agents. And this is why I'm saying, don't let them. They are all fucking agents, right? There is no difference between somebody being told by MI5, being recruited and, groomed, recruited, trained, and paid to kill somebody, and then sitting in the office where you coordinate the grooming, recruiting, training, and payment of these murderers. There is no difference. They are all conspirators to genocide. right? So don't let them make this difference between officers and agents. Don't fucking let them, because it's a crucial difference, right? And they are not entitled to make this. So he added that the agents, oh yeah, sorry, I had that. However, he said those MI5 officers could become criminally liable as an accessory. Yeah, fuck yeah. Not just could, they are. And again, why is Ben Jeffy QC pulling punches? Well, because he was hired by the human rights charities, who may be also paid by the globalists. And they realize they can't get out of this. We all know about the genocide, but they have to do the best job that they can, which is this piss poor shit show, right? I mean, Ben Jeffy QC is meant to be, representing the charities here, right? He has to say, these MI5 officers are fucking criminally liable. They are the masterminds. They are the recruiters. They are the planners. They are the ultimate CEOs running the mass murder, right? Of course they are criminally liable, for God's sake, right? Now, Mr. Jeffy said, I've already decided that even if Mr. Jeffy's services would be offered to me for free, I would say, no, thank you. I can do without Ben Jeffy QC here, But anyway, so Ben Jeffy QC said the issues raised by the case are there are cases. There are thousands of cases, guys, are not hypothetical, submitting that in the past, authorization of agent participation in criminality appears to have led to grave breaches of fundamental rights. Again, appears to. No, fucking has, countless times, right? Say it, man, say it. And just imagine how much he's paid not to say it, Okay, so he pointed to the 1989 murder of Belfast solicitor. 1989? That's like what, 40 years ago? I lost count. So 99 is 10, 2009 is 20, 30. I can't count. 30 years ago. You quoted one case from 30 years ago? Oh my God. Why not quote Darrim Daoud, who was murdered just a few years ago? Why? Because these people have the elephant in the room to hide. And they're like, oh, yes. Now, the Irish Parliament figured out that it was actually MI5 and MI6 agents murdering people in Northern Ireland. I was in London for my previous court hearing when it was shown on television that the Irish had this debate in their parliament, right? That was cool, right? And it was the Irish saying, oh, there seems to be all these MI6 agents cropping up as we are running the investigation. That's right, Irish people, because you were being mass murdered by the Crown Corporation, the same company that's murdering us now. But the Irish figured it out. So now they are kind of like, okay, we got through that 30 years on. We kind of admitted that, yeah, the Secret Services did something really bad, but it was 30 years ago, right? Water under the bridge. Let's not get upset about it, right? But Ben Jeffy QC and the charities have already been sent 1,400 cases by John Finch of real life torture happening now. Where can you find those 1,400 cases? Well, I can again show you. Now, I have to stop sharing my screen in between because I'm not sure if the right tab is going to be broadcast, but you can go back to my website. Okay, so let me share it again, and I will prove to you that all of these motherfuckers are lying. Okay, all of them. They are fucking lying. Now go to stop007.org, go down to the research library. And this is actually one of the links that the GCHQ and NSA have broken. Okay, I've just discovered it recently. So if you go down to victim cases, I explain how already over a decade ago, John Finch assembled over 1,500 international victim cases, many of those from the United Kingdom, and he sent them to all the governments, right? That's what he wrote to me in an email. We have contacted most governments as in most, like in around the planet, right? So all the big ones: security intelligence agencies, religious organizations, international organizations, human rights organizations, universities, scientific and other institutions, international media all over the world, over and over and over again, sending them all our case summaries, appeals for help, etc. John Finch. Now, the exact cases he sent around, you can find here. This is a summary of 700 torture cases from the Americas, 300 from Europe, 250 from China and Asia Pacific, 60 from Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, and 50 from, Southeast, the Middle East, and Africa. This was sent over 10 years ago. Now, you can prove this because John Finch's email was quoted by the global security company Stratfor in 2007. And this appeared in the WikiLeaks Vault 7 release here. And this was the link that GCHQ had screwed up. They were pointing to the web archive. But I cottoned on to this, and either I changed it or I made it public, or I emailed about it, and then they changed it back. But I've got the motherfuckers. I already recorded that they did this. So this link to the WikiLeaks article, WikiLeaks entry is important because this is the email ID 16811, sent in 2007 between, from one Stratfor email address to another, right? And this is the title, Impeach These Criminals, Please. And there in the attachment are these cases by John Finch. Stratfor knew about it. And Stratfor is a company that's advising all these governments. Okay, so there's extra supporting evidence for what John Finch sent to me in an email, that this is true. You can check. So all these people already knew back in 2007. That's 12 years ago. 12 years ago, guys. So for 12 years, the UK government, the human rights charities, and the IPT willfully tortured people and watched them be murdered by MI5 and MI6, including Darrim Daoud in the case of murder, including myself in the case of torture and almost murder, because they did have a couple of assassination attempts against me, right? That's the truth. And it doesn't make it into the Daily Mail, right? Now, I've got more things. Sorry, I'm laboring. You should really watch my broadcast while you're ironing or you're washing the dishes or something, or folding your washed underpants, something like that, so that you can listen to it, because I realize it's long, but it's important. I have to put this on public record so that I can go back in years' time and say, I told you so, Now, let's go back to this article, because I can milk it for all that's worth. I have to do it after all the pain and suffering I was put through in London. I'm going to squeeze Andrew Parker's balls as hard as I can, and I'm going to take this Ben Jeffy QC with it. Okay, so he pointed to it's 1989 murder, right? Later found to have involved collusion with the state, right? In the case of Freddie, what's-his-face, sounds Italian, like an Italian guy, who is alleged to have been a senior member of the IRA and a security service agent working under the codename Steak Knife. I mean, piss off. When you read these code names, can you see the same wank attack that I was exposed to at the, Zurich boarding gate? Steak Knife, I mean, fuck off, right? It's a bunch of guys playing with their dicks, really. So you've got this guy, Freddie, with an Italian name. He sounds like a mafiosi. He's working for the, security services, which is a big fat mafia, pretending to be a senior member of the IRA. And he's got a code name like Steak Knife. I mean, Jesus. Wanky, right? Wanky. This is why MI6 needs a female head like me. My application is still in, right? So if you don't want shit like that, you vote for me, okay? Now, talking about the IRA, I've got some news for you. I can show you how wanky these people are. I've got it right here for you. Hang on, let me just find it. It's one of these links. Yes, it's the next one. Now, this is Channel 4, hot off the press, guys, all right? So it made me burst out laughing when I seen this. Okay, so now, let's check this out. So 16th of October 2019, fresh, hot off the press, right? Less than a month ago. New IRA, there's a new IRA, right? There have been so many IRAs. This is the new IRA. Says border infrastructure would be a legitimate target for attack. Okay, so in an interview with Channel 4 News, the group said it was committed to armed action against border infrastructure and the people who are manning them. Sounds scary, but then you think, hang on, you've got the group of terrorists who give a press conference. I mean, couldn't you arrest the motherfuckers while they're giving the interview? Of course you could. So surely this is all fake. This is all fucking fake. I mean, come on. You can't have a terrorist give a fucking press release, can you? It's not a terrorist anymore. It's a government licensed, actor. That's what it becomes, right? I mean, think about it. Think about it. This guy gave an interview with Channel 4 saying, oh, we're gonna kill people. Not now, because I have to do this interview later. Why wasn't he arrested on the spot? Why wasn't he sniped out on the spot by MI6? Why? Because he's paid by them, that's why. That's the only reason why. They paid him to put on the shit show, so they can't kill him live on camera, or else they would have paid for nothing, right? So that's why. But listen, the shit actually appears on Channel 4 News, so they must assume you're a fucking moron, right? You should write to them and say, we're going to ensure your company gets shut down because you thought the entire United Kingdom is made up of idiots. So now look at this, right? This is the interview, and you can see this MI6 agent sitting there in this knitted woolly sock his grandmother must have, gifted to him the Christmas before. Look at the guy. There he is, sitting there, the new IRA, speaking out of his knitted sock. Isn't this hilarious? This guy wears a knitted sock, and I can see that he's wearing lady tights of a blue hue. He must have nicked out of his, dear wife's drawer that morning. I mean, for fuck's sake. Right? For fuck's sake. And look how they put him in a knitted, sock, but make sure he wears kind of like military, sort of a military jumper with these military shoulder pads that I think you can buy at Gap, or Topshop somewhere. I mean, look at this shit, right? But they assume you're so fucking stupid, you actually fall for this, right? That's the assumption, that you will think, oh yeah, sure, we'll have this murderous criminal walk up to Channel 4 and say, I would like to give a press conference and an interview about my murderous plans that I will, push through at an undisclosed time. Oh, of course, we're Channel 4 News here in the UK. We'll fly over, we'll leave MI6 at home, right? And, all the security services elsewhere will just not know about it. We'll just do the interview and fine. I mean, sure, we're totally cool with you, executing your murderous plans later. I mean, come on, right? But this is real. I mean, what's real about this is that in Channel 4 News, there's a group of intelligence agents and MI6 agents who are so fucking stupid to put this on and assume that you're so fucking stupid that you won't see this and burst out laughing. Right? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I mean by Masonic shit show. Okay? So, right? I can't make this stuff up. This is real, guys. Okay, so where all this started, and you need to know that this shit is going on. There's apparently a new IRA, right? I mean, it's like from the life of Brian. What were they called? The Freedom Front of Judea and the Judea Freedom Front. I mean, it's like that, right? This is the old IRA. This is the slightly new IRA. This is the new IRA. Okay. Well, as long as you guys don't blow each other up by accident, launching the same terrorist attack in the same place, fine, morons. But anyway, so this started because this Mr. Jaffe QC is referring to the IRA, which must be the old IRA, right? And this security service agent, Steak Knife, right? So when you hear this, you have to think that Steak Knife is a dickhead in a knitted woolly sock. Steak Knife, right? That's him there. God, right? Now, Mr. Jaffe told the tribunal that the government had refused to confirm that such serious criminal offenses could never be lawfully sanctioned under a policy. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, they refused to confirm. I mean, first of all, I'm already like, you know, I'm confused by these double negatives that are implied here. So they refused to confirm that such serious criminal offenses could never be lawfully sanctioned under a policy. So they say it can be lawfully sanctioned. Yeah, well, of course. I mean, probably the person you called, right? Or the you know, the government was called, and they were like, are you sanctioning such ludicrousness? And the person was like, I mean, I guess everybody's seen Steak Knife on ITV4, you know, channel news now. So what do I say, right? I mean, nah, okay, totally beside the point, right? Because of course they are sanctioning this shit. Otherwise it wouldn't be there. Otherwise this guy on Channel 4 News would have been sniped the fuck out the moment he came through the door, right? And GCHQ would have looked up everybody who he called in the last 20 years of his life and would have sniped them the fuck out as well with the directed energy weapon system, right? But they didn't. So why, right? Instead, they sniped me out when I'm trying to go to court, asking them to please stop killing me. Nah. Anyway, so Sir James EDQC, representing the government, said in a written submission that it would be impossible for MI5 to operate without covert human intelligence sources. Cheers. They actually called me that. Just as funny. Anyway, cheers. Yeah. Also known as agents. Oh man, this is so funny. But anyway, so James EDQC, this is the other one. This is not Mr. Jaffe. They actually, the two look almost identical, I have to say. I've seen James EDQC, and when I saw the image of Jaffe, I thought, isn't that? So anyway, these two, I think they look identical. I hope I'm not confusing them. But anyway, so these barristers, so Edie clearly is representing the government here, right? And he said that it would be impossible for MI5 to operate without covert human intelligence sources. Is that true? I think we should analyze this as we're moving forward towards the 21st century's new systems. Do we really need this shit? Because as soon as you have covert human intelligence sources, you have a secret system that you empower over all the other people, okay? Which is fine as long as you assume that you're only dealing with terrorists, but then you deal with this network, will be dealing with terrorists for a couple of days or weeks or months or years and would remain in place for the rest of the time because it's networked. Now, when it's networked, these network people would be morons not to use their covert network for business plans, exploiting their insider knowledge over everybody else. Okay, so as soon as you have a covert human intelligence network, you have a little potential organized crime ring that very quickly, when it's nationwide, will turn from potential to actual, averaged over the entire country. So in other words, this sentence, when you think about it, and you know a bit of systems analysis, you realize what James EDQC is saying is that it would be impossible for MI5 to operate without being allowed to create little pods of organized crime, which I think technically is true because MI5 is organized crime. But the question is that what the British people want in their country? Do you want a system that's generating insiders who will then be ganging up on you and your children and exploiting you, including for human trafficking? Is that what you want? Or do you realize, hang on, what James EDQC said is actually true, and this means if we don't want organized crime ganging up on us, we need to get rid of both covert human intelligence sources and MI5, which I think is also true, right? Think about it. Now, they are indispensable to the work of the security services, and thus to its ability to protect the public from the range of current threats, notably from terrorist attackers. Now, hang on a second. People have been painstakingly going through and proving that every terrorist attacker, you know, of any noteworthiness that made it into the news was actually groomed, trained, recruited, trained, and paid by the intelligence agencies, including the 7/7 bombings, right? The biggest terrorist attack, and it just went downhill from there into ever more ludicrousness. So, you know, what? MI5 says that these little pods of organized crime are indispensable to protect the public from its terrorist, you know, pods of organized crime that have bloomed into terrorist attacks that they have devised, you know, and created and organized and funded. What? This is nonsense, right? James Eady, QC, is desperately trying to muddy the waters and just razzle-dazzle you all, right? The poor few remaining honest judges that might have by accident ended up on the IPT, and you, the general public, he's trying to just confuse you all so that you don't realize that actually, hang on a second, he's defending organized crime. We need to get rid of organized crime. So it doesn't matter what James Eady QC says between now and doomsday, we have to get rid of these criminal motherfuckers. Right? And it's right there, right? I mean, he doesn't factor in that the terrorist attackers were all, you know, MI5 and MI6 agents or officers, whatever. Okay, so he added, given the covert nature of CHIS, and given the types of persons with whom and entities with which they have relationships, they need to behave in certain ways and participate in certain activities. Oh my God, I can see how this guy must have been sitting up at night, carefully drafting this, right? Carefully drafting this and coming up with a formulation that in the end is true. But let's analyze this. So James Eady QC says that given the covert nature of these, you know, secret human intelligence networks, and given the types of people they hang out with and have relationships with, yeah, which is also butt fucking at these big, you know, MK Ultra sessions, they need to behave in certain ways. Yeah, when you're surrounded by criminals, you have to behave like a criminal, and you have to participate in certain activities like kiddie fucking, butt fucking, ritualistic murder, directed energy weapon gunning, gang stalking, housebreaking, hacking of, you know, devices of people like myself, deleting particulars of claim, which I have written, hacking my, you know, Skype calls to victims. Yeah, they need to participate in all those activities, but that's because they're part of organized crime. Do you need this? Right? Sir James said that this behavior by CHIS is an is an inevitable and necessary part of their ability to function as providers of vital life-saving intelligence. Now, what the fuck would that be, right? And in order to seek to protect their own lives, yeah, exactly, more like it, and safety from the hostile and dangerous actors on whom they are providing intelligence. Now, the hostile and dangerous actors on whom they're providing intelligence are people like me. I'm certainly hostile, that's true. Dangerous, well, not physically violent, but administratively dangerous. I hope so, right? And they are certainly providing intelligence on me because they have their indoor surveillance, they're surveying my laptop, I've got eye implants, I've even got chips in my private parts, right? They know everything about me. Right? They're providing intelligence on hostile and dangerous actors. Now ask yourself, as soon as you complain about your directed energy weapon mutilation slaughter, you too will become a hostile and hopefully dangerous actor. If you weren't dangerous, you would be ineffective in court. Right? Now, what these people are saying is that as soon as you become, you know, dangerous to them and hostile to them, you become an actual danger, you can sue their ass, they are entitled to be as criminal as they want to be with you, including kidnapping you, which happened to Philip Kerr, or Philip Kerr versus MI5, torture you, which happened to me, and happens to me all the time, and murder you, which is what happened to Darrim Daoud. That's what it says. Do you understand? As soon as you fight back against your own murder, you'll become a dangerous and hostile actor, and by definition, they have the right to torture, kidnap, and murder you. That's what this is about. But I don't think the Daily Mail explains it like that to you, do they? Right? Now, he submitted that MI5 does not purport to confer immunity from criminal liability, adding, a prosecution remains possible. Yes, if you can survive their death squads, which I nearly didn't, right? I got my death threat on the way to the High Court, on the way to my very first hearing, and I survived my first assassination attempt 3 days after my first hearing. And there were 2 more hearings and many more assassination attempts, right? So in principle, you know, you can prosecute them. It is possible, theoretically, but you are in serious danger of dying. Think about it. Is that what you want in the UK? Or do you want to shut these motherfuckers the fuck down at last? So Sir James concluded that the underlying conduct, namely the participation in possible criminal activities by agents, was widely known and entirely obvious. Yeah, that much is true, Sir James. It was widely known because every public body and the human rights charities have been informed, and entirely obvious because these people were complaining and are complaining about YouTube, on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and they are saying we are being murdered. But Sir James also describes it as an unavoidable part of their maintaining their cover and acquiring vital intelligence. Now, what might that be? Vital intelligence also includes brain chipping your children and getting the vital intelligence for the Human Brain Project to get a couple of companies working on producing, you know, fuck bots. I call them fuck and kill bots. You know, it's vital intelligence for them. They need your children's brainwaves to calibrate their bots to be more human, you know. And when I say kill bots, I mean the wonderful things being made by Boston Dynamics, these running and jumping and killing machines. And when I say fuck bots, I mean those invariably female robots that are designed to be rather human-like, right? There was a funky one, a famous one. I forgot the robot's name, but it was a woman. It was just a woman's face, and she didn't even have hair because you could pick what sort of, you know, hair you wanted on her, ginger, blonde, brunette. You could pick before shagging the robot, right? But anyway, you know, to make it more lifelike, they have to brain chip people like me and people like you and your wife and your children and your grandmother. And yeah, and what they will get of you is vital medical data, vital intelligence, vital data in general. But the question is, they are getting it by criminal means for criminal projects, and it's being, you know, forcefully taken from you, this vital, or, you know, off you, this vital intelligence, under the most torturous criminal conditions. That's what we're talking about, right? That's what all this is about. It's about your mutilation torture. And so this is apparently vital, an unavoidable path for acquiring vital intelligence. Now, maintaining that cover, I'm not sure. I mean, frankly, that cover is blown, right? Blown. But anyway, the tribunal led by the IPT president, Lord Justice Singh, is due to hear submissions over 4 days and is expected to reserve its judgment. Reserve its judgment. Let me tell you a story about that. The IPT heard the case of Philip Kerr versus MI5, and they heard it back in 2016. Now, Philip Kerr, I'll show you Philip Kerr, MI5. There's an author called Philip Kerr. Here, let me show you. Let me show you what a huge bullshit show this is. So this is Philip Kerr's blog, Philip Kerr versus MI5. That's Philip Kerr. So you can read all about this, this court case. It started in the High Court, was then passed to the IPT for judgment. And I remember distinctly that the High Court said, should you not get relief from the IPT, you have the right to come back. But the problem is that in this process of having to pay ludicrously expensive and otherwise, frankly, worthless lawyers, you expend your finances, so you will not have the finances to ever come back to the High Court. And I think this is what the plan was all along. Okay. So what happened is that the High Court said, oh, no, it's to do with MI5. So go to the IPT, this really corrupt criminal organization that rejects everybody. Go there. So Philip Kerr did. And then after the court case, he had to wait months and months and months. And then he got the judgment. And I've got the judgment here on my computer somewhere. And you know what it is? It is called, and this is what Philip Kerr said to me on the phone, it's a non-determination judgment. And I was like, the what? A non-determination judgment. That is what it says in the document. They determine not to determine anything. They decide to just go, bye. And that's it. So the IPT found a way. It was the last thing that they could do, to be honest, right? So once you think about this, your case will be rejected by the IPT and you will never even make it there. It will be frivolous and vexatious. Should you make it into the IPT's court, you have a chance, which is essentially 0.0015% of succeeding, which is basically fuck all, right? But should you have paid so much for your lawyers that they actually had to do some work, and should you have so much overwhelming evidence like Philip Kerr did, including his ex-girlfriend testifying that MI5 blackmailed her and bribed her into helping in his kidnap, right? And it was on file, right? As a confession. Should you have this overwhelming evidence, then in the end, the IPT will take all your evidence, the judges will look at it, right? Take the evidence from the other side and go like, oh my God, this is a lot of evidence. And then they will go, bye, and close the door. And that's it. And there's no way to appeal a judgment, especially not if there isn't one. If the judgment is not to have a judgment. Isn't that novel? I bet you some MI6 think tank spent a year thinking this up, right? How the fuck are we gonna protect ourselves, our national security, from these hostile, dangerous people who make it into the IPT with evidence? And that's the only last thing that they can do. But it's already established by the IPT. So when you read in this article that the IPT will reserve judgment, it can mean many things. It can also mean that they come up with a non-determination judgment and they reserve the judgment to themselves. They will whisper it into their fist. That's what it means to reserve judgment, right? And this is real. I'm not making this shit up. This was already established in 2016. I think Philip Kerr got this non-determination judgment either in 2016 or a year later in 2017. And this is why I'm saying, if you ever end up at the IPT, it will be a Masonic shit show at all levels. And I feel sorry for the few honest judges who are sitting on the IPT and are desperately trying to, turn it into a real honest court, because it isn't one to start with. And it also has little things like the address of the IPT, which I can look up for you, which is actually a smoking gun piece of evidence. At least it used to be like that. Hang on. Investigatory Powers Tribunal. Yes. Here it is. Now look at the web address. Look carefully, because it speaks volumes. By the way, look that you're met with the all-seeing eye. Right there. Boom! The crime cartel says hello. Welcome to the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. Yeah, the crime cartel, right there, the all seeing eye. But then look carefully at the web address. It is ipt-uk.com. It's almost like it's a company. It's a company. It's a private company. .com, commercial. This is a commercial enterprise. And I betcha if you look at this, right, here you can see the address again, info@ipt-uk.com. And again, info, like info. You can ask us for information and we can tell you to fuck off, right? And look, the address is a PO box. I mean, having a PO box as an address is a telltale sign of a fraudulent company. They don't really have an address. Do you see? And now you're telling me you've got an entire tribunal with a commercial internet address and the PO box for an address? I mean, I think if I look at my claim form, MI6 and MI5 also have PO boxes because they're fraudulent companies as well, but at least they have a building. I mean, at least should you be a real terrorist trying to bomb something, you would have something to bomb. The IPT, no. And where did the IPT have its tribunals heard? Very important, in the Rolls building, in the Rolls building. Now, this is what I will finish off with because you need to understand this. So where is the Rolls building? In London. Here. Okay, so you have to understand this, guys, so that you know how you're being fucked. Now, if you're in the United States and you think, what the hell has this got to do with me? Well, everything, because your courts are following the exact same template. Okay, so everything I just said, you can transfer to your courts in Ohio and the Eastern District of Virginia and all these others. It will be exactly the same template. Okay, now the Rolls building, this is how it's spelled, is the new commercial court complex in Fetter Lane, and look at this, it's in the City of London. The City of London, it's in the extraterritorial area that is not part of Greater London. Okay, so here's the Rolls building. This is the Royal Courts of Justice. Let's zoom in. Royal Courts of Justice here, and the Rolls building is up there, just past the, you know, this whatever you pronounce it library. However you pronounce it, library. Now, let's look at the City of London, where are the city boundaries. And it's like this. So the City of London, otherwise known as the square mile, is extraterritorial to the United Kingdom. It is a tax haven, which is really a misnomer because there are no taxes levied there. It is a no tax haven, okay? No tax haven. Now, in this no tax haven, you have got St. Paul Cathedral, all these temples of the Knights Templar, and you have the smidge, half a smidge of the Royal Courts of Justice. Oops, the boundaries disappear when I zoom out. Blasted. Let's do it again. That's the City of London. This is the Royal Courts of Justice over here. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah. So this here, which looks like it's outside the boundary, but it's actually not. I think the boundary runs straight through it, or maybe incorporates the whole lot. That's the real court, and this commercial court is up here. I think here. Let me zoom in. Fetter Lane, that's right, here. So it's this building here, inside the boundary. This little fine red line is the UK, the country of the United Kingdom's national border. And you cross the national border and you are on extraterritorial, you are in another country. You are inside another country, and then as you're inside that other country, you go to that court, and the question is, who owns that court? Well, it's probably the people who own this country. Who own this country? The Vatican. So by going to the IPT, you are going to a commercial outfit that has a PO box like a fraudulent company, and is hearing its cases outside of the United Kingdom. Well, as far as I can make out, they can decide whatever the fuck they want. They can have a non-determination clause, judgment, right? They can do whatever they like because they're not in the United Kingdom. And they can turn around and say, go get us, motherfuckers. We're not in your country. Do you understand? And you have to have listened to all my broadcasts to know where all this is coming from, to know everything about the City of London. But that's why I was banging on about cartel signaling and the boundary dragons and the City of London all this time, so that when it then comes to the court cases and you hear about the IPT, you know what it means. You understand how you're being fucked up the arse at every sentence, at every turn. Do you understand now? It's all a fraud. The Daily Mail article is a fraud. The IPT is a fraud and is in another country. The human rights charities are frauds because they are still withholding the fact that people are being tortured to death in individualized concentration camps. There's nothing hypothetical about these court cases. It's not potential murder. They are stacks of murder cases that keep mounting as Andrew Parker's death squads keep killing. Do you understand? It's all a fraud. This court case is a fraud. That's why it's reported in the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail, I don't think, reported about Philip Kerr. Certainly didn't report about me. Not even Private Eye reported about my case, even though I was in their offices after the second hearing with my court bundle. Right? They couldn't give a shit for 3 years. So the only reason you're reading about it is because it's a fraud. Okay, so tomorrow morning, if you are a Londoner traveling on the tube and somebody is, reading about these things next to you, you know what to say. It's like, first of all, be aware the Daily Mail is a fraud. It is a front organization of the Council on Foreign Relations, which, by the way, runs a genocide. Should you be affected by the genocide, you might think about going to a human rights charity, but don't bother because they're frauds too. They have been watching people being tortured to death for over 12 years, and you can go to the WikiLeaks website and see that over 1,500 cases were known already 12 years ago, very well documented. They couldn't give a shit. And then be aware that the court that this court case is, purported to take place in doesn't exist. It's a private company happening or, staging a show outside the borders of the United Kingdom. It might as well take place in Panama or Timbuktu. And then be aware that should there be any judgment, it is of absolutely no impact, right, of no importance to the United Kingdom because it happened outside the United Kingdom. A private company put on a show outside the United Kingdom and produced a piece of paper that says something. What's the weight in the United Kingdom? Fuck all. Right? That's what this is about. Whatever these people come up with, the legal weight of it inside the United Kingdom will be shit all. Legally speaking and in practice. MI5 will continue killing. Right? That's what it means. So, if you are elsewhere in the world and you have lasted, oh my God, this long throughout my ranting broadcast, and you're thinking, what the fuck does this have to do with me? What it has to do with you is that should you have a court case in the US or anywhere else, in Hong Kong or Singapore or I don't know, somewhere in Africa or China about these things, make sure that the court case is happening in a court that belongs to your country. Be aware that this organized crime cartel designated entire parts of cities as foreign countries. This happened in Rome with the Vatican, in London with the City of London, and in Washington with Washington, D.C., and District of Columbia, which is extraterritorial. But it happened many more places around the world. If you are going, for example, into the UN in Geneva or in New York, you are entering a different country. It's extraterritorial. A building can be another country. If you're going into the Bank of International Settlements, which is known as the Central Bank of Central Banks in Basel, you are leaving Switzerland and you're going into another country. Okay? So be aware that the building might have been designated a foreign country. The entire part of town might be. And then when you're sure that you are still in the same country, but better check, the entire thing that puts on the show might be a private corporation and not a government agency. And actually in Germany, one of the whistleblowers who came forward said that she found out that an entire court in a German city, the court building, when you looked up, there's only the court in that building, but when you looked up the commercial register, what was registered at that address was an interior decorating, like a painting company, a company that would be painting the walls. Now, that's a Masonic joke. Why? Because they are painting a picture for you and you believe it. So the court is painting. It is painting something for you. And you are paying it to paint. It's not a court, it's a fraud. And that's in Germany. Okay? So check the commercial register, what is registered on that property, right? And if your judge in these places, if your judge was unlucky to be passed on to sit on the IPT, I think actually Judge Edis, the second judge to hear my case, actually became a judge on the IPT, be very aware that you are sitting in a foreign country on the board of a private company and you're putting on a show, and MI5 and MI6 last minute might just twist your arm to force you to lie and come up with this legal nonsense of a non-determination judgment, right? Well, the entire point of the court is that when two parties go in, the judge has to decide for one or the other. There is no third way of, oh, neither, right? Neither you nor you, fuck off, both of you, where's my coffee, right? That's impossible. But yet, that's what the IPT does. And I bet you the IPT won't be the only one. We will see many more examples. I expect that the super tribunals in Australia will eventually do exactly the same thing. Super tribunals have also been set up to circumvent the normal legal process of Australia, including the Supreme Court. Look up the super tribunals. In the US, it will be, for example, the vaccine courts that have been set up to bypass the entire legal system of the United States. Okay, these are criminal enterprises, and I think if you dig a bit deeper, you will find out that they are private companies. Okay, basically hired to fool you. Now, what to do about all this, right? Well, what you can do is you can start researching the judges and find out who of them have been fooled, who of them are corrupt motherfuckers, and flag each one of them, notify them all of what's happening, and then hopefully the honest judges will pedal back and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I have to go on gardening leave. I feel rather unwell. I have to have a break, and withdraw, leaving the corrupt ones. And whoever remains in the shit show, they will be members of this criminal organization, defrauding the British people and committing treason. And that's how you get them. You might not be able to get them within the City of London boundaries, but as soon as they come back into the United Kingdom, right, as soon as they walk back out, you can nab them, you can arrest them. You can freeze their assets inside the mainland United Kingdom. And then eventually you, dear British people, you can think about annexing the City of London. After thousands of years of being fooled by these idiots, you can just invade. You can say to the British Army, well, on Wednesday morning, you will, walk into the City of London and occupy it. And then we will declare that it's part of the United Kingdom. And we'll tidy up this bullshit. As soon as you do that, you can start taxing all the banks which are registered in this no tax haven to circumvent the entire UK taxing system. Okay, so I would really recommend, if the British military would like to make up for the fact that they were gunning people to death, committing high treason, well, you could, arrive at a deal. It's like, okay, we won't execute you if you annex the city of London. It shouldn't be too hard. I mean, surely, right? I mean, there are also several, sandwich shops on the way, so you can, get some food supplies as you're taking over the city of London and, marching into these office buildings. There's a Tesco and a Sainsbury's even, So, and I'm not joking, because the actual structure of these organizations is set up to be that. And then what you have to do is, if you take over the city of London, who's going to complain? Well, the Vatican and the organized crime cartel. But whoever comes forward and complains is a member of this organized crime cartel. You can arrest them. You can jail them for life. So who's going to complain? Right? Who's going to complain? So anyway, these are big things, and it seems so uncomfortable to think about these matters as we're sitting, reclining in our living room chairs. But I'm telling you, when Andrew Parker's death squads are reaching your neighborhood and are gunning your home and, your wife, maybe your pregnant wife, because that's what they do, by the way, with pregnant women, they gun the fetus to start trauma-based mind control in the womb, right? And when they are, you pick up your baby and it's caught and you realize it was burnt with microwave weapons, then you'll very quickly realize, hang on a second, these are all the things we need to do now to solve this problem. All of these things I've listed. Currency reset, get the gold from the global debt facility, get rid of the fiat currency because it's generating a super rich criminal parallel society while we are all being impoverished and enslaved. Have a debt amnesty, get all these, ex-university students or university students out of the, pedophile clutches of MI5, get them off the streets of London, gang stalking Catherine Horton, right? And get back to normality. And remember that nobody will do that for you. Nobody. You will have to do it. So that's why you should come to my court case on the 12th, because that's when we are tackling part of this stuff. Okay, so thank you so much for listening and lasting through my long-winded explanations that I had to, get to you under quite heavy torture with my chip implants under my scalp and being gunned. I hope you understood what I was trying to say, because it's crucial. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your donations, because that's the only reason why I could travel to London. It is literally what keeps me up afloat, because in this state, I can't have a job. I'm working full time on this, okay? I'm working on getting the witness testimonies in, getting the court case prepared, and starting the shutdown of this criminal enterprise. Thank you also for sending me the links. Thank you for all your supporting messages. They are literally making the difference between life and death, because even I get sometimes, pushed down emotionally, and they are trying to have me murdered or suicided and all that, and I can stay happy and energetic and cheerful because of all your positive messages. And remember that there are a lot of victims reading the comments, so there's positive messages to them as well. All of your positive messages get amplified to thousands of mutilation slaves and Holocaust victims. So keep the positivity coming, and let us feel that we are all in this together, and we will solve these problems together all around the world at the same time. That's what I'm working for. So thank you so much for listening, and there will be more news soon. There's much, much more. Next episode should really be about the US and other countries. So, but that's so much from the United Kingdom. And thank you so much for listening. And as always, don't let these motherfuckers bullshit you. Okay, so bye for now, and talk to you soon.